Chapter 2432. I won't say anything more. I'll take half a kilogram of it and put it on my bed to drink slowly. The golden-robed man danced with joy. He was so excited that his face was flushed. Drink a cup in the morning, drink a cup before going to bed at night. Xinyuan Changkong was also a little excited, but he still pretended to be calm and said disdainfully, "Can you tell the difference between morning and night in this white fog? Drink a cup in the morning, drink a cup in the evening? You're really good." The golden-robed man was immediately defeated. With these teas as a foundation, the relationship between Chu Yang and these three people warmed up again. Leveled up. Explosive. From strangers to acquaintances, it only took half a cup of tea's time. It was as if they were sitting on a rocket to the point where they could call each other brothers. "Brother!" The golden-robed man on the left slapped Chu Yang's left shoulder. "You're really good. Yan Fei, recognize you as my brother. Thank you, Pa. Such good tea." "Brother." The golden-robed man on the right slapped Chu Yang's right shoulder. "Not bad. I, Yang Zong, won't say thank you to you. I've put everything aside in my heart." Chu Yang was caught off guard by the two big slaps. So, he fell on his butt with a crashing sound. Although his body could withstand the tremendous force, the chair he was sitting on couldn't withstand it. So, he still sat on the ground. Someone whose butt touched the cold ground couldn't help but have black lines on his forehead. Ha! Seeing Chu Yang's embarrassing situation, everyone laughed heartily. The two girls laughed especially, like flowers trembling. Suddenly, there was no longer any sense of alienation between everyone. "Brother, tell us quickly, what is Chong Tian like now?" The three people asked at the same time. Chong Tian Continent. This story is really long. Chu Yang began to talk tirelessly. The three people listened with great interest. He described the landscape of the mountains and rivers, described the geography of the people, described the customs of the people. Chu Yang's mouth flowed like a river, and he talked endlessly, as if he could go on forever. The three people listened with great interest from the beginning. Slowly, he lost interest and even felt a little resentful. Because this guy was only describing this. He didn't mention anything about the people, geography, or local customs of the Chong Tian continent. Or rather, he didn't mention anything that the three of them really wanted to hear. Even. There was no implication at all. Xinyuan Changkong was still able to maintain his composure. Although his face was gloomy, he was still listening attentively. However, Yan Fei and Yang Zong could no longer hold it in. After hesitating for a long while, Yan Fei finally stammered. It was as if he was sitting on a hedgehog. He said uncomfortably, "Well, apart from these, are there any other heroic deeds? Or the great war of the century heroes?" "Hero? Are you talking about those legends and myths?" Chu Yang's face was full of confusion. "Most of those are just exaggerations. What's there to talk about? Do you want to hear about this?" Yan Fei was dumbfounded and could not help but swallow his saliva. However, he did not dare to say what he really wanted to say. He could only look at Xinyuan Changkong. "When we were together, there would be legends and legends. There are also some legends. Although they're a little exaggerated, they're not too outrageous." Under the urging of his two brothers, Xinyuan Changkong finally opened his mouth unwillingly. However, the moment he opened his mouth, his originally clear voice became a little hoarse, and he even pretended to cough. "At that time, we still remember. At that time, Xinyuan Changkong said strenuously, "And the legend of Tribulation Sword Master and Brother Tribulation. Those people might not be legends and legends, but they were always the best of the best. I wonder if you've heard of any similar legends?" When he said this, the three of them looked at Chu Yang with burning eyes. Apart from unlimited anticipation, there was also unlimited nervousness. Although they were deceived. Although they were deceived for a lifetime. Although they were harmed and almost used to death in the end. However, in the end, they still wanted to know some things. For example, how was their big brother, who had caused their brothers' souls to scatter, in the martial world? But were there any legends about him? In this battlefield, many of the warriors who were fighting against the heavenly demons were the same kind of people as their brothers. They knew each other's identities, but There was basically no deep communication. Especially when it came to the unbearable past, no one was willing to talk about it. The past was unbearable to recall, but they still wanted to know if their old friends were still alive. Now, Chu Yang in front of them was a person who had ascended. He should be different from the other people who came from the heavenly layer. They didn't know the inside story of tribulation, but they had the courage to ask about it. But of course, they didn't expect that they would accidentally find the person they were looking for. They didn't dare to ask about the previous tribulation. Instead, they asked about the current tribulation sword master. You're asking about this? You're talking about this? Chu Yang's face showed a sorrowful expression. He said, "This matter is really too tragic. I did deliberately avoid this topic at first. When it comes to the legends and legends of our heavenly layer, we can't skip the legend of tribulation. But this legend is really too tragic, so I've been avoiding this tragic question. But I didn't expect you guys to take the initiative to ask this question." Tragic? Too tragic? What do you mean? The three of them sat up straight at the same time, their eyes wide open. That matter? That person wouldn't have spread it out himself, right? He should be glorious. How could he be so tragic? And it seems like the whole world knows about it? Now in the heavenly layer continent, almost everyone knows about it. But everyone has the same attitude, which is to keep it a secret. Because every time they talk about it, they feel their hearts ache. In the heavenly layer imperial court, His Majesty Zi Hao, the heavenly emperor of Purple Cloud, is recognized by everyone as a hero. But in the heavenly layer continent, the only legend that is recognized by everyone is the legend of tribulation. Chu Yang sighed deeply, his voice full of emotion. What? Legend? Hurry up and tell us in detail. What happened? The three of them felt that their hearts were about to jump out of their throats. They couldn't wait to ask. It's a long story. If you didn't ask, I really didn't want to talk about it again. Such a peerless hero, died so tragically. Even his body died and his Tao disappeared, his soul scattered. Chu Yang sighed again and again. The three of them panted heavily at the same time. Could it be that he was talking about us? Could it be that what happened back then was already known to the whole world? Brother, please, tell us in detail. What is it that could shake the entire heavenly layer? Xianyuan Changkong could tell that Chu Yang didn't want to talk about it. So, he suddenly stood up and bowed. Then, he changed the topic and said seriously, "This matter is very important to us. Please." Yan Fei and Yang Zong asked at the same time. "All right." Chu Yang said solemnly, "Heroes can't be wronged forever. Since you said that this matter is related to you, I'll say it again. But you have to be patient. I'll tell you the whole story in detail. Don't worry, we'll definitely be patient." The three of them nodded hurriedly. "We'll be very patient." Speaking of this matter, I'll have to start from the Tribulation Sword Master. Chu Yang said. He was interrupted by Yan Fei. "Ah? The Tribulation Sword Master? The Tribulation Sword Master is already at the Tribulation Sword Master?" "Shut up." Xianyuan Changkong and Yang Zong looked at Yan Fei fiercely and reprimanded him at the same time. Yan Fei sat down embarrassedly and scratched his head. "Sorry, I'm in a hurry. Shut up." The two of them shouted at the same time, "Stop and listen carefully. If you say one more word, get out." Yan Fei lowered his head and didn't say anything. Continue. The two of them turned to look at Chu Yang at the same time. The Tribulation Sword Master of the first generation came from a very ordinary sect in the lower three heavens. He was a handsome young man. When he was only 15 years old, he already became the Tribulation Sword Master of the first generation. Moreover, he was smart, handsome, and elegant. He was really a dragon among men, a peerless talent in the heavenly layer. Chu Yang began to narrate. After hearing this series of praises, the three of them thought, "What's so strange about this? The previous Tribulation Sword Masters were all like this. Otherwise, how could they win the hearts of the people? This Tribulation Sword Master of the first generation brought his brothers and started from the lower three heavens, and so, he turned the tide and saved the day. His loyal heart shone brightly in the sun and the moon, and his spirit shone brightly in the stars. Chu Yang's voice softly described the story that was slightly exaggerated with artistic embellishment. Anyway, the main character of the story was simply a perfect person who was loved by everyone. Mo Qingwu leaned her head in Zi Sheqing's arms, as if she had already fallen asleep. Zi Sheqing also buried her face in Mo Qingwu's hair. The two of them were trying their best to control their emotions, but the two of them were already having a stomachache from holding it in. They really had never seen such a shameless and despicable person before. The two girls didn't dare to raise their heads. Once they raised their heads, they wouldn't be able to control the smile on their faces. In fact, they would be exposed on the spot. So, the Tribulation Sword Master came to the upper three heavens. This Tribulation Sword Master was so chivalrous, courageous, righteous, upright, loyal, so. Then he rushed to the upper three heavens. Chapter 24:33. What exactly happened? The three of them listened attentively. Although the things that Chu Yang said might be a little exaggerated, but to them, they still felt that it was reasonable and reasonable. My brothers were probably like this back then. After this Tribulation Sword Master rushed up to the upper three heavens, he was surprised to find that the law enforcement officers, who were supposed to be his greatest support, were now completely opposing him. When the identity of the Tribulation Sword Master was exposed, the law enforcement officers and Dharma Supreme of the upper three heavens became even more aggressive. They directly mobilized the power of the whole world to go against the Tribulation Sword Master. For a time, the Tribulation Sword Master was basically going against the whole world, and the situation was very unfavorable. Chu Yang's voice was heavy. What's going on? How is this possible? The three of them were confused as well. The law enforcers have always been the biggest support for the Master of the Calamity Sword. No matter when, as long as this force exists, it's the personal force of the Master of the Calamity Sword. Why are they against the Master of the Calamity Sword? Something must have gone wrong. Yes, something must have gone wrong. Chu Yang sighed. After many investigations, this first-generation Tribulation Sword Master discovered to his surprise that this Dharma Supreme, who is the head of the law enforcement officers, not only has a superb cultivation, he is also extraordinarily intelligent. What shocked him even more was, this Dharma Supreme actually knows everything about the Tribulation Sword Master and Tribulation Brother. He even knows about the Tribulation Sword technique and those elixirs and pills. It's the heavy elixir. Yan Fei said angrily. He really couldn't stand the fact that this guy's story was full of mistakes. Yes, it's that heavy elixir. In any case, it's an extremely miraculous elixir. Chu Yang readily accepted her advice. He immediately corrected himself. Let's not talk about these details. Hurry up and tell us what's going on. Under normal circumstances, only the Tribulation Sword Master himself knows these things. How did others know? Especially an outsider like the Dharma Supreme? Xianyuan Changkong couldn't understand. This mystery lasted until the end. It was only during the final battle that the truth was finally revealed. Chu Yang's voice was heavy. This Dharma Supreme is actually one of the previous tribulations. And he's the most irreplaceable think tank. What? The three of them were shocked. They were completely shocked to the extreme. They didn't expect such a strange thing to happen. But Chu Yang immediately stopped talking, because he realized that there was a loophole in his story that should not have appeared. The fact that the Dharma Supreme's true body was Diwu Chocheng. Chu Yang originally did not intend to announce it to the public. Regarding the Dharma Supreme's mental journey, Chu Yang had always felt very complicated, but it was undeniable that there was also a trace of admiration and a trace of pity. Even though he had done a lot of bad things, and even though he had planned to purge the entire world in the end, Chu Yang still didn't want to speak ill of him. But now, in a moment of carelessness, he had revealed half of the truth. Chu Yang suddenly stopped talking. The three of them stood up anxiously at the same time. What happened next? What happened after that? What are you trying to do now? How could that Dharma Supreme be the brains of the previous tribulation? How can he go back? What the hell is going on? Why don't you continue? The three of them were so worried that they were about to go crazy. Seeing that they were about to reach the critical moment, this guy actually stopped talking. Wouldn't this make them depressed to death? Yen Fei jumped up and down. He was so anxious that he scratched his head. Say it, little ancestor. Don't tell me that at such a moment, you're going to say, what will happen next time? Then I'll definitely suffocate to death. I'm actually choosing my words carefully. I'll continue. Chu Yang had already made up his mind. He continued, and the reason why this former tribulation brother appeared here is to avenge his brothers. Avenge? You mean avenge? The three of them exclaimed at the same time. Because the previous generation of tribulation brothers actually died in the hands of the tribulation sword master. Chu Yang said, so this tribulation brain. At the last moment, he desperately escaped from a place that was said to be mending the heavens. Then he used all his schemes and tricks. He concealed his identity and became the head of the law enforcement officers, the Dharma Supreme. Everything he did was actually to find his elder brother, the tribulation sword master of his generation, and ask him personally, why? Why? The three of them murmured absent-mindedly, yes, but. These three words we also want to ask all the time, but where can we go to ask? But when this brain came back to the world, thousands of years had already passed. In the heavenly realm, that's a very long time. But in the martial world, there's no longer any legend of this tribulation sword master. Chu Yang said, that's impossible. That's impossible. The three of them jumped up at the same time. Although they didn't know who this previous generation tribulation boss was and what kind of character he had, but how could a person who could become the tribulation sword master and lead the tribulation brothers to the peak of the heavenly realm be an ordinary person? How could a person who could achieve such a feat become a nobody? Not to mention other things, all the brothers knew very well what kind of person their boss was back then. He was definitely a man of great talent and vision, unparalleled intelligence, and unparalleled wisdom. He had exhausted all his schemes to achieve all these. Next, even if he wanted to dominate the martial world, it wouldn't be difficult for him. How could he be a nobody? It's a pity that this is the truth. An indisputable truth. Chu Yang said, that's not right. Xianyuan Changkong frowned deeply. Even if the tribulation sword master is no longer around, his clan must still be around. How could they disappear? Chu Yang frowned. Indeed, they didn't. Have you seen the previous tribulation sword master's clan when you were around? I think I've only seen the tribulation clan. Hearing this, the three of them were stunned. That's right, they fought every day back then, but they really didn't come into contact with any of the tribulation sword master's clan. If it was really like back then, how could the tribulation sword master not have a foundation to pass down his legacy? The three of them fell into deep thought. This seems like there's a problem? Chu Yang said solemnly, let me continue. Unable to find a way to ask, that tribulation strategist found another way and thought of ways to become a Dharma Supreme. He used the power of a Dharma Supreme to deal with the next tribulation sword master who might appear. Finally he waited. That battle wiped out all the clans in the three heavens on the heavenly level continent. Even all the martial artists in the heavenly level continent were affected. That was really an earth-shattering battle of the century, and it lasted for a long time. I can imagine. Xianyuan Changkong and the other two suddenly felt their blood boiling. There was a brother who was determined to go back and take revenge. In order to avenge his dead brothers and seek justice from the destined tribulation sword master, he didn't hesitate to slaughter the world and bathe the heavenly level continent in blood. Although this didn't happen to them, just thinking about it made them so excited that their scalps tingled. And it was under such high pressure that the tribulation sword master of the first generation struggled bitterly and actually broke through the last stage. Thus, he knew the true mission of the tribulation sword. At the same time, he also knew the tragedy behind all this. He knew the whole truth. Truth? What truth? The three of them asked at the same time. Yes, it's the truth. Chu Yang nodded slowly and said with a hint of sorrow, the truth is the mission of the tribulation sword. The mission of the tribulation sword? What does the truth have to do with the tribulation sword? The three of them asked one after another, their eyes widening. How can it not have anything to do with it? It's very important. The hidden mission of the tribulation sword is to fight the extraterrestrial demons. Chu Yang said bleakly. The tribulation sword master only knew in the end. The so-called gathering of the tribulation sword masters was actually a selection. It was to choose the true candidate to fight against the extraterrestrial demons and quell the demons. He looked at the three of them and said, just like all of you, coming to the heavenly level imperial court, coming to the purple cloud heavens, guarding this fallen area and fighting endlessly. The breathing of the three of them became hurried in an instant. At the same time, she felt that her heart was suddenly lifted, as if it was being pulled out, and she almost couldn't breathe. Actually, it's like this. Chu Yang repeated what he had said to Wu Jueqing back then in detail. He said, because the Calamity Sword had never found a person who was truly qualified to inherit its legacy, it fell into a cycle of reincarnation again and again. While the previous masters of the Calamity Sword did not meet the requirements themselves, their brothers had already fulfilled the conditions. However, he himself did not have enough strength to go up, and his brothers also could not go up. So, he could only choose to sacrifice himself. Let his brothers go to the destined place of the Tribulation Brothers to fight against the extraterrestrial demons. So the so-called tribulation mending the heavens wasn't to mend the hole in the sky, nor was it to extend the time limit for the heavenly calamity that was about to collapse. It was to quell the purple cloud heavens. Chu Yang said slowly. But the three of them were already in a daze. Their eyes were blank and lifeless. Chapter 24-34. Chu Yang's gaze was fixed on their faces. The three of them were completely unaware of this and continued to sit there in a daze. Golden robes. The sudden flash of golden light when the eyes were operating, the golden light from the bones when the enemy slashed his body. An almost indestructible body. Was this the so-called immortal golden body? The minds of the three of them were churning like a tsunami. After the truth was revealed, that Dharma Supreme, who was also the previous tribulation, was deeply regretful. In the end, he perished together with an extraterrestrial demon that had infiltrated the Double Heavens continent. If it wasn't for his sacrifice, the Double Heavens continent would have fallen into the ravages of that extraterrestrial demon. Chu Yang sighed emotionally. That's not right. It doesn't make sense at all. Shenyuan Changkong suddenly raised his head and looked at Chu Yang fiercely. Even so, those previous tribulation sword masters didn't have to die. Reality is so cruel. If they didn't die, his brothers were destined to not be able to pass through that passageway. Chu Yang said quietly, they had to sacrifice their physical bodies, souls, and even the fate of their entire family to pour into that hole. In fact, when he killed his brothers with his own hands and used the most despicable words to provoke them, making them hate him, he was already dead. The one who was alive was actually just a walking corpse. After he collected the bodies of his brothers and buried them, at the latest, when they were halfway through the passageway, he would also throw his own body into the passageway to complete the protection and construction of the last part of the journey. If he didn't do that, everyone's souls would only disperse in that passageway. Not only would they not be able to attain the immortal golden body, but they would all die in there and never be able to come out. The three of them sat there and listened in a daze. For a moment, the three of them seemed to have become three wooden statues. Their eyes were extremely lifeless. So this was the truth back then? He misunderstood Big Brother? Wrong Big Brother? In the silence, only Shenyuan Changkong's voice could be heard asking subconsciously, then, Big Brother's family? When we left, the richest land on the continent was clearly inherited by Boss's family. Even if Boss is no longer around, shouldn't his family have inherited the land from generation to generation? I don't know about that. I only know that every generation of tribulation masters would establish a huge family and enjoy glory for tens of thousands of years. However, there has never been a legend of a descendant of the tribulation sword master, not even one. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Oh right, there's only one exception. After the 8th generation tribulation sword master disappeared, His family also disappeared soon after. Only his younger brother and his younger sister-in-law's family were left. But this family was destroyed in the hands of Brother Tribulation's descendants. There's only Brother Tribulation's big clan in the world. There's never been a 10th super clan, Kaka. The three people on the other side were gritting their teeth. Tears welled up in her eyes. Suddenly, Yen Fei slapped on the table and yelled, "Those ungrateful bastards! How could they? How could they? How could they? How could they?" Xinyuan Changkong sniffed. His eyes were completely red, and his chest was still heaving up and down rapidly. However, he brazenly raised his head and locked his cold gaze on Chu Yang. "I don't believe what you're saying. How can these things be known by everyone in the heavenly layer continent? If what you've said is true, then it's undoubtedly top-secret information. How do you know about it?" Chu Yang sighed deeply and said, "Your suspicions are very reasonable. What I just said is indeed not something that everyone knows. It is indeed an absolute secret." He smiled and said, "But I know it. Moreover, I know it completely." "But give me a reason." Xinyuan Changkong's sharp eyes looked at Chu Yang. Chu Yang pulled Mo Qingwu over and smiled. "Because my wife's brother is one of the Tribulation brothers. And he's the brains of the Tribulation brothers." Mo Qingwu exclaimed and looked at Chu Yang. Xinyuan Changkong looked at Mo Qingwu and finally nodded slowly. Next, he didn't ask Chu Yang. Instead, he asked Mo Qingwu a few inconspicuous but crucial questions. However, these questions weren't a problem for Mo Qingwu, who was Tribulation's brainchild's younger sister. They were things that she had experienced personally, so she just told them the truth. Moreover, Xinyuan Changkong would never dream that this brainchild's younger sister was actually one of the Tribulations. A female Tribulation that had never been seen before. And she was the wife of the Tribulation Sword Master. It could be said that this brainchild's younger sister could answer the questions that Tribulation's brainchild couldn't answer, let alone some ordinary things. After asking a few crucial questions in a row, and being answered by Mo Qingwu fluently, Xinyuan Changkong finally gave up. He sat down in a daze, as if his spirit was suddenly sucked out. The other two, Yen Fei and Yang Zong, were already dumbfounded. In front of Chu Yang and the other two, it was obvious that the three of them were trying hard to restrain themselves. However, their breathing became heavier and heavier. Finally, swoosh, 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 a few lines of hot tears flowed down the three brothers' cheeks. They didn't say anything. They just sat there in a daze, crying in a daze. They didn't make any sound, but it was as if they were dead. Smack! Yen Fei slapped his own face hard and scolded, "Yen Fei, you're a bastard." This slap was so hard that his face swelled up instantly. Yang Zong also raised his hand, wanting to hit himself. However, after thinking for a while, he suddenly slapped Xinyuan Changkong's face hard. Boom! Xinyuan Changkong was sent flying. Yang Zong suddenly stood up and scolded, "What did I say back then? Fuck, it's you bastards who insisted that you were framed. Fuck, where did you get so many delusions of being framed? At that time, I said that maybe Big Brother had his reasons. What did you say?" As he spoke, he suddenly burst into tears. He slapped his own face and cried, "Now, you've hated Big Brother for tens of thousands of years, you've scolded Big Brother for tens of thousands of years. Do you feel good now? When you die in the future, how can you face Big Brother in the afterlife? Do you still have any face left?" He suddenly roared like a thunderbolt. Xinyuan Changkong fell to the ground, as if he couldn't stand up anymore. Tears flowed down his face as he said painfully, "Yes, I was wrong. We were all wrong." Yen Fei howled and cried. Chapter 2435. Facing the situation in front of him, Chu Yang heaved a deep sigh. This time, when he spoke of the past, he purposely spoke in a joking tone, hoping to make the matter as light as possible. But to these iron-blooded men, the truth of the matter was still too heavy for their lives to bear. Originally, Chu Yang didn't think of saying the cruelest thing all at once. But now he changed his mind. Any concealment would be a great harm to such brothers. Trying to conceal the truth would only lead to more serious consequences. They already had the power and the right to know the truth, even if the truth was so hard to accept. Not only did they need the truth, but the dead also needed justice. The crying of the three gradually stopped, but their bodies were still trembling slightly. They were still grieving and still unable to accept it. But in front of outsiders, they only lost their composure for a moment before regaining their emotions. Blood flowed out from the corner of Xianyuan Changkong's mouth. That was an internal injury caused by the backlash of using his own cultivation to suppress the grief in his heart. However, he ignored his injuries and forced himself to take a deep breath. This breath seemed to have sucked in a lot of the surrounding white fog into his stomach. It seemed to have buried all the grief and bitterness deep in his heart. "Brother Chu, our hearts are in a mess." Xianyuan Changkong took a deep breath and said word by word, "The three of you, please take a rest for the time being. Let us sort out our emotions carefully before we continue our conversation." Chu Yang stood up. He said, "Understood, understood. This is what we should do." Xianyuan Changkong smiled bitterly and said, "The three of you go out and turn left. There's another room over there. The facilities are rather simple and crude. I'm sorry to have neglected your highness, but now we can't suppress the emotions in our hearts. It's really inappropriate for us to receive more distinguished guests." He tried hard to control himself and said to Zi Sheqing, "Your Highness, please forgive us." Zi Sheqing nodded silently and said softly, "From your reactions, I can tell that you're probably the famous brothers of the previous generation. The sword master got what he wanted. His wish was fulfilled early. Such a sacrifice should be within his calculations. But I believe it more. No matter what, his spirit in heaven wouldn't want to see his brothers hurt and grieving." She paused for a moment and deliberated for a long time. Finally, she didn't continue speaking and held Mo Qingwu's arm. He followed Chu Yang out. The three figures gradually disappeared. Xianyuan Changkong sat on the chair in a daze, as if he had completely lost consciousness. After a long time, she finally let out a soft sigh. With this sigh, the tears that she had been holding back burst out of her eyes once again. After Chu Yang and the others left, the three of them sat quietly on the chairs and thought about the past. She quietly wept. Other than the sound of her tears dripping onto the ground, it was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Outside, on the bridge that led to where they came from, white fog filled the air and drifted back and forth. In this kind of white fog, nothing could be seen clearly. It was hazy. This white fog had existed for an unknown amount of time. It seemed that ever since the double celestial palace and the purple cloud heavens came into existence, the fog had always existed here. Perhaps in the Ming dynasty or the future, it would continue to exist forever. Isn't it just like everything else in the world? No one could see what was on the other side of the fog of life. Chu Yang, Mo Qingwu and Zi Sheqing sat silently in the room on the other side, facing each other in silence. Right now, they really had nothing to say. In the face of such a situation, they could neither advise nor not advise. But they had to say that things had changed with the passage of time. Heroes couldn't be wronged, and comradeship couldn't be erased. But such a truth brought great sorrow to the survivors. It hurt even more. Chu Yang looked up to the sky and sighed. He murmured, "How can everything in the world be perfect?" Zi Sheqing sighed and said softly, "How can everything in the world go according to one's wishes? Everyone knows how to reason, but when it comes to it, how many people can be exempted?" Mo Qingwu also sighed softly and said in a daze, "If the tribulation sword master that the elders followed was still alive, that would be the best." Chu Yang and Zi Sheqing sighed at the same time. "Still alive? Is it possible? Is it possible?" Chu Yang asked himself in his heart. Suddenly, a dejected sigh came from outside. That was Xianyuan Changkong's voice. At this moment, Xianyuan Changkong and the other two had already walked out of the room. They sat down side by side on this extremely steep first bridge and looked at the vast sea of clouds in a daze. "The blood in my chest can burn my dreams. I should have no regrets as long as my brothers are here, side by side. We can turn the world around as one. Tribulation brothers have no regrets as long as they are alive." Suddenly, Xianyuan Changkong recited softly. This was a song that was circulated in the heavenly continent when the brothers gathered together in the past. It was a song about how they robbed their brothers back then. However, this song hadn't been recited for tens of thousands of years. Because as long as they recited it, they would think of that incident back then, that person, although everyone had dreamt of it countless times in the middle of the night, and their hearts were always spinning, not forgetting the slightest detail, who would be able to say it out loud? Who would be able to say it out loud? But now, it had resurfaced in the world once again here. Yang Zong and Yen Fei's tears fell like rain as they continued sobbing softly. The path under my feet, the sword in my hand, flattening the mountains and breaking the heavens. Tribulation sword, hot-bloodedness and righteousness move the world. Who can be a hero? Tribulation sword master is named Duan Tian. Tribulation sword master, Duan Tian. It's hard to succeed, but it's also hard to fail. The 3-foot-long sword looks down on the world. Since ancient times, success or failure has not been determined by the heavens. Once the sword strikes, the heavens and the earth turn cold, drifting and going without a name. Tribulation Brothers' first test. Tribulation Brothers' first, success or failure has not been determined. The ancestral spirit river will be passed down forever. The autumn wind is bleak and the river is cold. Tribulation Brothers' second, Jiang Shanghan. Pulling up the vast sky, there is Xianyuan, the stars in the palm change. The sun and moon in the heart are cold. Once the sword strikes, ghosts and gods will be shocked. Wisdom can turn the heavens. Tribulation heart, sitting upright on the unmoving mountain, strategizing with a snap of the fingers, talking and laughing can overturn the heavens. Tribulation Brothers fifth. Tribulation brain, Xianyuan Changkong. Gai Qiong Xiao, long sky swallow, spreading its wings and soaring between the heavens and the earth. Tribulation Brothers Yen Fei. The three of them recited softly. As they recited, tears flowed down their cheeks. Their hearts were bitter and unspeakable. This recitation was almost instinctive. It wasn't because their hearts had returned to the past at the beginning of the recitation. That was the most memorable moment. The time when the group of brothers gathered in the past, every moment, and every event slipped past their eyes bit by bit. The memories that they thought they hadn't gone through for tens of thousands of years, the past that they thought they had long forgotten. At this moment, it was as vivid as a painting. As if it was yesterday. The past was unbearable to recall? So it was all in the heart. The past singing and drinking, the past fighting side by side, the past singing and laughing, the past riding horses in the martial world. Vaguely, that extremely familiar face suddenly appeared in everyone's minds. Black hair, a square face, a tall and straight figure, dressed in white, and a deep gaze. Those two sharp gazes were like swords, as if they were going to pierce through time and space. The long river of time from tens of thousands of years ago shone on the faces of the three once again. The three of them trembled at the same time as if they felt the heartfelt gaze of those two eyes. Sharp, and cold, but when he looked at them, these sharp eyes were filled with endless care and gentleness. Xianyuan Changkong suddenly covered his face and cried out, "Boss!" His voice was like the cry of an ape deep in the mountains, and it was heart-wrenching. "Ah, boss!" Yen Fei looked up at the sky and screamed. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood and laughed bitterly. "You're so cruel! You're so cruel! You're so cruel!" But now, "you're so cruel," and the previous curses and complaints contained a completely different meaning. "You're so cruel to yourself." Thinking of what Chuyang said just now, the three of them were heartbroken. The past Tribulation Sword Masters used their bodies to open the path of reincarnation and open the door to the outer realm. Their bones were the walls, their flesh paved the way, their blood became the wind, and their souls became the sky. They sent my brothers to the outer realm to fight the extraterrestrial demons. They nurtured my brothers and reconstructed their bodies to become immortal golden bodies. They helped my brothers to become powerful in the outer realm and achieve immortal achievements. They let my brothers enjoy the glory of the heavens and the earth and receive the supreme glory. Boss, we're already fighting the extraterrestrial demons in the outer realm, but where are you? Where did you go? Boss, we're already immortal golden bodies, but what about you? We've already achieved immortal achievements, but you've left behind eternal infamy. Back then, when you cleaned up our corpses, did your heart hurt? You must have been heartbroken. When all your brothers left and you were the only one left, did you regret it? You must have regretted it. You didn't regret it. You knew that we'd live in hatred of you ever since. Could you really be so calm? But we've misunderstood you for so many years and scolded you for so many years. Now that we know the truth, how can we endure it? The three of them cried, unable to speak. After a long time, Xinyuan Changkong suddenly stood up and let out a long howl. His howl pierced through metal and stone and spread far and wide. Then, somewhere far away, a similar long howl suddenly rang out, one after another. Xinyuan Changkong stood up suddenly with red eyes and strode into Chu Yang's room. When the door opened, Chu Yang and the other two looked at each other in shock. Xinyuan Changkong stared at Chu Yang with red eyes. For a long time, he didn't say a word. He just stared at Chu Yang. Finally, he took a deep breath and said, "You said earlier that you want to pay respects to the purple firmament heavenly emperor?" Chu Yang frowned and looked at him. Before he could say anything, he heard Xinyuan Changkong say heavily, "We've thought about it. We'll send you there. We'll send you there at all costs. As long as we're still breathing, you'll be safe." Xinyuan Changkong's handsome expression even had a hint of hysterical determination. "Let's set it at 10 hours later. Everyone, set off." "Why?" asked Zi Sheqing, puzzled. "Not long ago, you were still desperately trying to stop us with no room for negotiation. Why did you suddenly change your mind now?" "I'm back. I can only say that I'm so tired that I'm half dead. Not only physically tired, but also mentally, that. Chapter 2436. Because the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds is a hero that we all deeply admire. Xinyuan Changkong laughed bitterly, as if he was murmuring subconsciously, "Heroes should not leave any regrets, no matter whether they live or die. The daughter of the Heavenly Emperor came to pay respects to him, so we should do our best. No matter what the final result is, no matter what the price is, the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds should be paid respects to by his own flesh and blood. It doesn't matter if he's alive or not, we have to send his descendants to his side out of love for him. And then we will escort them back safely." After Xinyuan Changkong finished, he turned around and left. When he reached the door, he paused and murmured, "We have already left regrets, and it is hard to make up for it. How can we create another regret?" His laughter was bitter. His figure had already disappeared at the door. Chu Yang sighed deeply. "Chu Yang, your story has driven them crazy." Zi Sheqing sighed softly. Chu Yang said heavily, "There is no other way. They will know the truth sooner or later. Instead of letting others say it, it is better for me, the current Tribulation Sword Master, to say it. More importantly, the current battle against the extraterrestrial demons is the best time to express their emotions, and you going to pay respects to your father this time also gives them the best reason to express their emotions. If we don't let them express all the negative emotions in their hearts, do we really have to watch such heroes commit suicide out of guilt?" Zi Sheqing sighed. "But they also have the same intention to die now," Chu Yang nodded. He also vaguely noticed this just now. Zi Sheqing sighed. "I'm afraid that this trip will be accompanied by many casualties. And for these people, any casualty will be a great loss. If you hadn't hinted at me with your eyes, I would have changed my mind just now." Chu Yang's eyes flashed. He said, "This? I have my own plans. The past Tribulation Sword Masters are heroes, but his brothers are also heroes. I will try my best not to let anything happen to them." His gaze turned to Emo Qinggu. "Qinggu, I will leave this matter to you." Emo Qinggu nodded deeply. At this time, there were figures moving rapidly in the distance. Dozens of figures rushed over from all directions. "What is it?" Someone asked anxiously, "Why did the few of you send out the summoning signal that should not be sent out unless the extraterrestrial demons invaded?" Chu Yang looked at the people rushing over from afar. But he suddenly realized something. It could be said that he was enlightened or moved. The people who came were clearly divided into 7 camps. Or perhaps it should be 7 groups of people. In between, one could even clearly feel that there was a clear distinction between the two. There was no doubt that the relationship between these people was very friendly. It seemed that there was no difference between parties. They were partners who worked together for the same goal. However, one could clearly feel that they were different and belonged to different factions. Every group of people came side by side. The distance between each other was just right, forming a special formation to help each other. It was as if every one of them had placed all their attention on the brothers beside them, completely ignoring the fact that their own weaknesses had already been exposed. However, when everyone was doing this, all their weaknesses became non-existent. Or, it was a fatal temptation that was enough to lure any enemy. Although the color of everyone's clothes was different, everyone's skin and eyes were flowing with a kind of faint golden color. Immortal golden body. Everyone was in this state. However, among these 7 groups of people, other than his own brothers who cooperated seamlessly, the other groups all maintained a kind of distance from him. This kind of distance was very subtle. They could help each other and live and die together, but they couldn't live and die together. Live and die together and live and die together. How big was the difference? Chu Yang didn't know, but Chu Yang could feel such a small difference. A total of 7 groups? How can there be 7 groups? There shouldn't be so many. Chu Yang thought of a sentence. Most of the Tribulation Sword Masters chose to sacrifice themselves at the critical moment to help their brothers, except for the first Tribulation Sword Master who chose to really kill his brothers to help himself. But in the end, he was suppressed under the lake of death and had a tragic ending. And that time, Qin Fong, the first Tribulation Sword Master, Diwu Chouchang, caused a change in the fixed trajectory. That means that the rest of them were already destroyed. How can there be 7 groups? Could it be that Diwu Chouchang's group of brothers didn't actually die? Chu Yang's heart had already skipped a lot of time and thought of many things. The first group of people came first. A person came together. From the other people's silent acceptance of him as the leader, and from the expressions of these people, Chu Yang could guess that this person might be a brother of the second Tribulation Sword Master, Feng Yun. In other words, he was in the first group of people to arrive at the Heavenly Imperial Court and was the first to start fighting the heavenly demons. On his face, other than the traces of time, there was also an obvious sense of steadiness. This was an awe-inspiring demeanor that could only be cultivated after experiencing life and death for a long time and standing on the edge of life and death with a clear conscience. This kind of awe-inspiring demeanor made people feel heartfelt admiration at first sight. The second group of people came with a whoosh. They were the brothers of the third Tribulation Sword Master, Meng Tsang. The third group only had people in this group, and this person looked the most anxious. The moment he came, he clustered around Xianyuan Changkong and the other 2. Every one of them looked extremely concerned. This person was obviously the other brothers of the fourth Tribulation Sword Master, Duan Tian. Only they would be so concerned about Xianyuan Changkong and the other 2. The fourth group also didn't have people. There were only 8 of them. The moment they arrived, they sized up Chu Yang. Chu Yang didn't know any of these people, but their expressions revealed an indescribable sense of friendliness. There was also an indescribable sense of excitement. It was as if their long-cherished wish was about to be fulfilled, or had already been fulfilled. When they saw Chu Yang, it was as if they saw the person they respected the most, the person they felt the most guilty about, and the person they missed the most. It was a complicated feeling. Chu Yang instantly realized that these people must be the brothers of the fifth Tribulation Sword Master, Yun Dong. They were also Wu Jucheng's brothers. Only these people knew about Chu Yang and the others and showed kindness from the start, because they already knew everything from Wu Jucheng. Looking at these people, a sentence appeared in Chu Yang's mind. I stand on the firmament and point my sword at Bai Yun Dong. I'm Yun Dong. Who dares to touch my brothers? It was as if there was already a person in white holding a sword and flying in the sky. When Chu Yang showed such a fascinated expression, the eyes of the 8 people became even more agitated. Some of them already had tears in their eyes. Because, at this moment, they were thinking of the same person. There were also only 8 people in the 5th batch, but they looked very tired. According to the order, they should be the brothers of the 5th Tribulation's Sword Master, Qin Fong. Looking at them, Chu Yang couldn't help but feel puzzled. At this moment, Zi Xiecheng's questioning gaze also came over. That day, Chu Yang and Zi Xiecheng were both involved. Diwu Chouchang's words were still vaguely by his ears. But now, these people appeared in front of him. How can they still be alive? Didn't all of their divine souls vanish and their souls scatter? Chu Yang was really puzzled. That day, Diwu Chouchang had said that the reason why he could escape and return to the heavenly layer was because he absorbed the spirits of all his brothers. That was how he survived the devouring of the black hole. Thinking of this, Chu Yang couldn't help but think of his old enemy, the Dharma Supreme, Diwu Chouchang. The Dharma Supreme who had been waiting for the right opportunity for tens of thousands of years to avenge his brothers. The original hero who had transformed into a formidable person. For his purpose, for his hatred, he didn't hesitate to shed the blood of the entire heavenly layer. Diwu Chouchang. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh. But he inadvertently noticed that there was an empty seat between these 8 people. It was either intentional or unintentional. Jiang thought, this space must have been left for Diwu Chouchang. If Diwu Chouchang was there, the whole formation would become flawless. But, now that there was one less person, it seemed like there was a lot less, and there was an additional huge flaw. But they would rather keep this flaw, but also this space, even though each of them knew that the brother who belonged to this space would never come here. Chu Yang looked at that empty space and stared at it for a long time. He sighed in his heart. Dharma Supreme, if you knew the situation now, would you regret it? The first batch was a complete group of people. This batch should be the brothers of the 7th Tribulation's Sword Master, Lin Zun. The man in gold whom Chu Yang and the other 2 had seen on the road sign was among them. The 7th batch was also a complete group of people. They were also the group that gave Chu Yang the strongest feeling. The reason why Chu Yang had such a strong feeling wasn't because their strength surpassed the others, but because Chu Yang had already determined the origins of these people. They were a group of brothers of the 8th generation Tribulation Sword Master, Jun Lai. And the strongest enemy that Chu Yang and the others faced in overturning the heavenly layer, the great ruling clan, was the direct descendant of this person. Chu Yang suddenly felt that the day when he left the heavenly layer seemed to be very, very far away, as hazy as his previous life. The 8 people of the 4th batch didn't pay attention to the others, but just walked up to Chu Yang. The leader looked at Chu Yang with an unusually sharp gaze and said softly, "You are Chu Yang, right?" Chu Yang nodded and smiled. "Yes, I am Chu Yang." That person's body trembled, and the eyes of the 8 people suddenly shone with extreme passion. At the same time, they looked at Chu Yang's waist. Chapter 2437. At the waist. It was a commonplace for ordinary people to hang their scabbards. Although everyone knew that they couldn't see it, because the sword of the Tribulation Sword Master never needed to be worn, their eyes still stayed at that place for a long time. They wanted to see something. They wanted to see something. The leader took a deep breath, looked up at Chu Yang, and said in a low voice, "I'm Jun Weiling." Chu Yang said, "I've heard so much about you. The Elder Wu Jucheng has already seen you?" Jun Weiling couldn't hide his excitement and eagerness. He nodded slightly and asked in a low voice, "Where are your brothers?" Chu Yang said seriously, "They're all in the heavenly imperial court now. Although they don't have your indestructible golden bodies, they came up with us that day." It could be seen that Jun Weiling was trying hard to suppress the sadness in his heart. He and his brothers looked at Chu Yang with strong envy. They seemed to want to say something, but they didn't. In the end, they just moved their lips and said in a dry voice, "Thank you." Chu Yang carefully listened to these 2 words. He felt as if his heartstrings had been violently plucked. "What are you thanking me for? Are you thanking me about Wu Juqing? Or, are you thanking me about the truth of that year?" Chu Yang listened carefully and said in the same way, "You're welcome." Jun Weiling swallowed his saliva. He looked sad as if he was about to cry. Then he took a deep breath and said, Can you? The 8 brothers showed strong desire in their eyes at the same time. Some of them had tears in their eyes. Chu Yang understood immediately. They wanted to worship the Tribulation Sword. That was the weapon used by their boss in the past. Chu Yang was about to speak. Suddenly, he saw more than 50 people turn to look at him. The leader asked loudly, "Who is the sister of the current Tribulation Sword Master?" Emo Qingwu was shocked. She walked out slowly and said, "I am." That person's sharp eyes locked on Emo Qingwu. He said, "Fifth in the Tribulation Sword Master?" Emo Qingwu shook her head and said respectfully, "No, second in the Tribulation Sword Master, third in the Tribulation Sword Master." That person was shocked. He said, "Second in the Tribulation Sword Master? Third in the Tribulation Sword Master?" Emo Qingwu nodded. Emo Qingwu's answer had shocked almost everyone. In the history of the tribulation, he was ranked 5th. The 5th position didn't seem to be in the front, but it was the core position of the Tribulation Brothers. But Emo Qingwu said that this generation's think tank was actually ranked 2nd? The second tribulation? Of course, the most shocking part was the next sentence. Brother is 3rd. That person swayed and said, "Third brother? Who was the leader? Calamity Sword Master is the boss?" Emo Qingwu continued to nod. The gazes of the 11 people simultaneously focused on Emo Qingwu. She was the younger sister of the current Tribulation's think tank. Tribulation. Calamity Sword Master. It had been far too long since he had uttered these words. Perhaps it had been 10,000 years, or 20,000 years, or even longer. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he didn't dare. He didn't dare to say it. Once he did, he would recall those happy days when he rode his horse freely in the martial world. Chu Yang felt a little relieved. Just from this simple conversation, it was clear that a large portion of these people did not know the truth. Jun Weiling and the other 7 people should have already known his true identity from Wu Jueqing and the fate of the Calamity Sword Master. But the others still didn't know. And the sad story of the past Calamity Sword Masters had not been announced by Jun Weiling and the others. Xianyuan Changkong and the others who had just found out also didn't have the time to say it now. Chu Yang was somewhat puzzled about this situation. Since Jun Weiling and the others knew the truth, why didn't they seek justice for their boss and reveal the truth? But after thinking about it for a while, he had connected the dots. It was reasonable that Jun Weiling and the others didn't reveal the truth. Such a thing, no matter who it was, would be an extremely serious blow. Why would they reveal it so hastily? They had to choose an appropriate time. Obviously, they didn't get such an opportunity until Chu Yang and the others came. Chu Yang inexplicably heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, that scene didn't happen. Otherwise, facing 50 big crying men at the same time would be quite uncomfortable. Xianyuan Changkong's brothers surrounded the 3 of them with concern. Every one of them was astonished. Why do these 3 brothers seem to have cried so hard today? Why was everything so wrong? Could it be that something had happened? At this moment, that person asked, "You're the younger sister of this generation's calamity. Then, where's your brother now?" Everyone who didn't know the truth heard this question, and everyone's breathing quickened a little. Emo Qingwu smiled and said, "My brother, of course, is in the Heaven Imperial Court now. Didn't Chu Yang say that we ascended together?" That person asked, "Why didn't he come here?" This sentence was worth studying. The destiny of the past calamities, or rather, the final destination, was to fight the extraterrestrial demons in the purple cloud heavens. But this generation's calamity broke this tradition and didn't come here. Did something special happen, or was everything in front of them just a scam? Emo Qingwu pretended not to know and replied calmly, "Actually, we all just ascended not long ago. My brother is still working hard in other worlds, building his own forces in preparation to eliminate the demons in the future." Many people were deep in thought. That person asked again, "Other than your brother, what about the others? Everyone ascended through the normal way?" Emo Qingwu nodded affirmatively. "Then, is the Calamity Sword Master here too?" That person continued to ask. "Of course, didn't I say just now? Everyone ascended together to the Heaven Imperial Court." Emo Qingwu nodded. her delicate brows furrowed, and she deliberately showed a trace of impatience. However, his shrewd eyes were observing the reactions of these people. Confusion and envy appeared on the faces of the 40 to 50 people at the same time. It turned out that in this generation, no one had been separated, they had all come up together in one piece. What an enviable thing! But why could they all ascend together? Why didn't the Calamity Sword Master use them to nourish the heavens? This was undoubtedly a huge mystery. Or, was everything in front of them a scam set up by someone? You mean, the Calamity Sword Master of your generation also came to the Heaven Imperial Court now? That person's Adam's apple bobbed. When he said the words Calamity Sword Master, his voice was unusually dry, as if his throat was torn. Jianghu still nodded. May I know the name of this generation's Calamity Sword Master? That person asked solemnly. Jianghu quickly said, It's not convenient for me to tell you this for the time being. That person was stunned when he heard that, and then he nodded. Since it's not convenient, then forget it. We won't force you. Calamity Sword Master, these words, or these people, had always been a taboo existence in everyone's hearts. In fact, when Jianghu said, I can't tell you, many people who still didn't know the truth heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. Although Jianghu refused to tell the truth and created more chances of it being a scam, everyone didn't care too much. What everyone was most afraid of was facing the bloody past of that year, that unforgettable pain. Now, if this little girl didn't want to say it, then so be it. It was just right to delay for a while more. You all want to pay respects to the Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor? That person changed the question and changed the topic at the same time. Jianghu looked at him and said, May I ask who you are? This was the first question that Jianghu asked in return after answering many questions passively. But this question made a trace of pain appear on the face of the burly man in golden clothes in front of her. Especially, in front of so many people with the same identity and the same experience, this question was even more uncomfortable. The burly man in golden clothes smiled sadly. My name is Ji Huitian. I'm the person in charge of this place. After saying this sentence 3 times, Ji Huitian actually lowered his head. This sentence was said very weakly, and it was really a world of difference from the aggressiveness just now. The words one of Calamity's brothers that almost came out of his mouth were actually swallowed back. Beside him, everyone's face was gloomy. He actually felt inferior in front of the little sister of Tribulation's brain. Look at them, Brother Calamity even brought his family up, and what about us? This gap is too big. Ji Huitian sighed, but looked up at the sky again. After a moment of silence, he asked again, Your brother Calamity's sister. Then we're not outsiders. These two are your friends? Why do you want to pay respects to the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Firmament? Jianghu was silent for a moment and said, Of course I also have the intention to pay respects to the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Firmament, but I'm not the key to this matter. This sister beside me is the daughter of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Firmament. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Even Cheng Feifei, Jiang Shanghan and the others who were surrounding the 3 brothers and asking about their well-being were shocked and looked up. The daughter of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Firmament. What a noble and great identity this was. In the eyes of these iron-blooded men who had been fighting in Purple Firmament for tens of thousands of years, the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Firmament was an indelible monument, the greatest hero in the world. Even the saint who was recognized as the #1 person in the Heavenly Imperial Court was not as important as the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Firmament in their hearts. The daughter of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Firmament was naturally 1,000 times more noble than the saint's bloodline. 10,000 times. No! Ji Huitian's first reaction was to refuse. This is too dangerous. Absolutely not. Beside him, someone said, I think this must be done. For Brother Calamity's sister, and for the bloodline of Purple Firmament. Ji Huitian turned his head and looked at the person who spoke in disbelief. Chapter 2438. June Weiling was the first to speak, and the 7 brothers behind him expressed their support without hesitation. Cheng Feifei and the others were about to speak, but they heard Xianyuan Changkong say, "The purple firmament heavenly emperor should be worshipped by his descendants. This is a hero's regret. In order to not let the hero have any regrets, we must complete this even if we have to die." Cheng Feifei swallowed the words of objection that were about to come out of his mouth, and said solemnly, "That's right." Although he was curious about why Xianyuan Changkong was acting so strangely today, since his brother had made a choice, then even if he had to bring all his brothers to climb a mountain of swords and sea of flames, he could only support. Support without hesitation. There was no second sentence. Ji Huitian looked at the 2 camps strangely, and he only felt that it was ridiculous. Behind Ji Huitian, a gentle-looking young man also looked at the 2 groups of people in front of him with a surprised gaze. What's wrong with these people today? Why are they acting so strangely? Forcefully carrying out something that they know is impossible? This is really too unusual. Although these people were all brothers of the past, and they were definitely in the same camp on this battlefield, there was absolutely no subordinate relationship between them. For each group of people, only the people in their group could make the decision. No matter what the other groups said, as long as one person disagreed, it was equivalent to the whole group disagreeing. On the contrary, if one person here made the decision, then no matter whether it was right or wrong, the others would unconditionally support it. Especially in front of outsiders, this was even more obvious. Beside him, someone said, "I, Lu Long, also feel that this is feasible. For the descendants of the purple firmament heavenly emperor, even if it's a little risky, it's worth it." As soon as Lu Long spoke, his brothers all nodded their heads to express their agreement. Another wave of people, Ji Huitian looked at these people in shock. This group of people were not reckless people. Even if there was a resourceful think tank in each group, the others were not idiots either. Why did they collectively change their minds in such a short time? Just as he was thinking about the pros and cons, he heard his brother behind him say, "Since that's the case, let's fight this battle." Killing in and out of the heavenly demon camp is also a deterrent. Besides, isn't this the purple firmament heavenly emperor's wish? No matter what, we have to help complete it. Ji Huitian was stunned. He turned around to look at that junior. He really couldn't figure out why his brother's strategist had changed his mind at this moment. However, he saw Nian Shi winking at him. "I'm afraid there's more to it than meets the eye, and it's probably something very important. Let's take it one step at a time." Even if these people are dishonest, they won't be hostile. At the very least, they won't cheat others. That's true. Ji Huitian rubbed his chin. When robbing brothers or facing enemies, every one of them could turn into an executioner, but when facing their own people, they would never set up an ambush. It was normal for tribulation brothers from different camps and different eras to risk their lives to fight for each other, but it was absolutely impossible for them to cheat others. At this point, Ji Huitian also expressed his agreement. "That's good. Let's go together and kill 7 times. With Ji Huitian's approval, the others no longer had any reason to object. The group of warlike people split into groups and cheered. Finally, they could let go of their hands and feet and kill to their heart's content. The current situation was actually moving in a very accidental but inevitable direction. Just like this, Chu Yang and the others rushed forward with a large wave of war fanatics. Just as they started to walk, Chu Yang and the others felt a special feeling at the same time. It was a kind of estrangement that wasn't obvious, but it really existed. The 3 of them were accidentally and inevitably wrapped together. Of course, this was a more conservative way of saying it. If the current situation was described in a less conservative way, it should be that they were excluded from all groups. And the feeling between other groups was even more obvious. But everyone was used to this situation and didn't feel offended. In fact, they were even willing to endure it. On one hand, it was certainly difficult for anyone to integrate into their camp. More importantly, they didn't need others to join their camp. They didn't want their feelings of tens of thousands of years to change because of the addition of new blood. When your camp needs me, I can charge and break through the enemy lines for you, and even sacrifice my life on the battlefield. I have no regrets if I die for you. However, my emotional world is the original one, only the original one. It's the original. No matter when or where, my heart is the same. Although I was hurt and hurt before, but I don't want to lose it now, and I don't want to be divided. Walking quietly in such a strange atmosphere, one could feel infinite security because they would protect you with their lives. But one could also feel a kind of strong rejection and an insurmountable estrangement. Chu Yang thought of something Yao Ningning had said before: I like you people very much. When I'm alone with each of you, I especially like it, and I'm especially happy. But once all of you are together, I feel that there's no place for me anymore. Even if I force my way in, I'm just one person, an extra person. This was Yao Ningning's original words. In fact, everyone sincerely treated him as their own brother, but not as Brother Jia. There were only these few Brother Jia, and no more. It was only at this moment that Chu Yang truly understood the true meaning of Yao Ningning's words. At the same time, he also understood why Yao Ningning was so silent in Moyanshan. But this was an unsolvable problem that had no solution at all. Along the way, they passed through more than 10 such checkpoints. This road was really very long. Everyone didn't know how long they had walked for. Anyway, it had already been a very long time. Fortunately, there was an end to the road. At the end of the white fog, a trace of light finally appeared in front of them. Ji Huitian's gaze was deep. He said in a low voice, "We're about to reach the purple cloud heavens. It's hard to guarantee that this place will be peaceful. You must be careful. I hope that all of you, especially the princess, after seeing the current situation of the purple cloud heavens, don't feel too sad." Zi Xiecheng gritted her teeth and nodded lightly. A strand of hair fell down as she nodded, floating with the wind. Her hair floated. At this moment, Zi Xiecheng suddenly burst into tears. "This is the wind of the purple cloud heavens, blowing my hair. It's as if my mother has felt my arrival and is gently stroking my hair. Is this the smell of my mother?" A sudden cold wind, accompanied by a kind of smoke mixed with murderous intent, quietly swept over. All the previous generations of Tribulation brothers narrowed their eyes slightly, their whole body on guard. Another person who had an abnormal reaction was Chu Yang. The moment he felt the cold wind of the purple cloud heavens, he also felt the purple cloud pagoda in his Tribulation space suddenly spinning, emitting an unusually strong battle intent. There also seemed to be some commotion in the palace of the Medicine King. At the same time, the Tribulation sword flew out, emitting thousands of rays of light in the Tribulation space, overflowing with murderous intent. Because what came from outside was the aura of the extraterrestrial demon. The purest aura of the extraterrestrial demon. Chu Yang's murderous intent suddenly rose, and his battle intent overflowed. A ray of sunlight shone slowly from the horizon, but it couldn't penetrate the white fog. It stopped at the edge of the purple cloud heavens. Chu Yang's eyes narrowed unexpectedly. Then, he found himself standing at the end of the bridge, the other end of the first bridge. In front of him was an extremely vast world. However, even though Chu Yang had imagined the legendary purple cloud heavens thousands of times, he didn't expect it to be like this now. Even though he had tried his best to imagine the cruelty of this battlefield, he absolutely didn't expect it to be so cruel. Then, he finally understood why he needed the protection of the immortal golden body to continue fighting the extraterrestrial demons here. Because this was a complete place. Other than the two sides fighting, there was no other living thing. A strong wind blew, and the dust on the ground flew up along with the tornado. Countless round objects danced in the air, drifted, and fell. Looking carefully, the so-called round objects were actually all skulls. There wasn't the slightest bit of land on the ground. All that could be seen were thick and deep bones. Countless broken limbs and countless bones quietly spread out on the ground, forming a thick layer. Occasionally, as the wind blew, they would roll on the ground. Some rolled, and suddenly turned into bone powder, scattering with the wind and dispersing into nothingness. As far as the eye could see, there were endless white bones everywhere, all skeletons. Ji Huitian was expressionless as he struck out with his palm. Under the bridge, A gust of wind blew up, and instantly, a huge pit hundreds of feet deep appeared. However, the pit was still full of white bones. The pile of white bones here is at least 10,000 feet deep. Ji Huitian's expression was solemn. A bunch of skeletons, including those of extraterrestrial demons and humans. The whole world, especially the 3,000 miles of ground near here, is like this. There isn't the slightest bit of green in the whole 4,000 miles of land. There are no plants here that can survive. No animal can reproduce in such an environment. There's no water source, no food, no things necessary for life to survive here. The only thing here is fighting. Ji Huitian stood at the bridge and looked ahead as he said lightly. Not far ahead, there were two groups of people fighting. On the battlefield over there, who is fighting the extraterrestrial demons? Ji Huitian turned back and asked. Chapter 2439. It's the people from Demon Emperor Heaven. A few elite juniors from Super Sex came here for training and caused an unusual battle. That year warrior answered accurately. Their leaders are 3 saint-level experts and over 30 heavenly human-level experts. The rest are all saint-level experts. Ji Huitian made an N sound and nodded. Is the rescue preparations ready? The year warrior nodded. It's done. It's guaranteed that they can be rescued when only the elites are left. As for the rest, I'm afraid they will die. Ji Huitian nodded. That's right. In the martial world, it's normal for guests to die in a foreign land. It's already not easy to keep the elites. Everyone wore indifferent expressions as they watched the battle in front of them shake the heavens. It was as if they were already used to it. Zi Xiecheng looked at the two parties fighting on the land of purple cloud heavens and couldn't help but frown. She said, "Aren't you going to help? We have the ability to defeat this group of heavenly demons. Why do we have to sacrifice ourselves? Such a sacrifice is completely unnecessary. As long as you help, you can easily annihilate this group of heavenly demons in an instant. This is obviously an easy task for you, isn't it?" Zi Xiecheng's tone was a little angry. Seeing those warriors who came from thousands of miles away to fight the heavenly demons but lost their lives here, she felt extremely upset. On the battlefield, screams sounded one after another. It was obvious that there were lives being lost every moment. Ji Huitian and his brothers looked at all this. They looked indifferent and didn't have any intention to do anything. Ji Huitian said softly, "Your Highness, do you know how many people here are here to gild themselves? How many people are actually afraid of death? How many people are not qualified to fight against the heavenly demons? How many people here are the real warriors? All these need to be tested with life and death. Only life and death are the only criteria to test one's qualifications." Ji Huitian said faintly, "Perhaps there will be some who will die unjustly or not, but we can't take care of all these. Some sacrifices are necessary, some sacrifices are self-inflicted, and some sacrifices are meaningful." He said indifferently, "There is a limit to human strength. We have our responsibilities. We have to protect the entire Heaven Imperial Court, not the people who came here to train. There is a fundamental difference." He sighed deeply. "Besides, the heavenly demons won't send out their main forces in a battle of this level. However, there are countless super experts lying in ambush. Those people are the real opponents we have to face. If we rashly join the battle, it will only lead to the intervention of the enemy's truly tyrannical combat strength. Our participation will not save them, it will only speed up their deaths. But you will still take action today." Zi Xiecheng said sharply. Ji Huitian said indifferently, "But we have to make sure that most of the people in this trial are dead before we make a move. True warriors, heroes, we will not allow them to die. However, those who are greedy and afraid of death and came here to gild themselves can forget about leaving this place alive." He pointed at the battlefield and said, "Do you see that person? Earlier, when the enemy attacked, he hid behind his comrades. This action led to the deaths of his comrades. Although he used the deaths of his comrades as an opportunity to kill Skyfiend in the end, this person is despicable. Even if Sky Fiend didn't kill him, I would have killed him. Comrades are entrusted to each other in life and death. They are not used to exchange for fame and glory. And that one, he simply dragged his disciples over to die for him. And that one, he didn't even use his sword from the beginning to the end. That one, what's the use of keeping such a person alive? It's just shameful. Ji Huitian's gaze was sharp. This is a battlefield. When we are on the battlefield, we are soldiers. Soldiers don't care about power and status. They only care about their mission and dignity. And these people have insulted these few words. So, if these people don't die, we won't make a move. Because we can't tolerate the fact that after giving our strength, the ones we save are actually such bastards. Ji Huitian's words made Zi Sheqing silent for a while. Chu Yang sighed deeply. He couldn't help but think of the words of the purple cloud heavenly emperor. Why are people's hearts so cold? And these people who used their comrades as a shield and used their comrades' bodies in exchange for a chance to survive were undoubtedly the perfect interpretation of this sentence. Ji Huitian's words might be a little extreme, but as he said, this is a battlefield. Not a court, not a school. What soldiers respected was always the strong and the heroes. Ji Huidan looked coldly at the battlefield on the other side and said, "We will escort Her Highness to pay respects to the heavenly emperor. Then who will stay here to guard?" He had said these words so casually, but he had given them a choice. After a period of silence, no one was willing to stand out to guard. These people were all iron-blooded men. They all had a thirst for battle that came from their bones. No one would give up such an opportunity. That's good too. Ji Huitian sighed helplessly. Then, let's leave the original garrisons here to guard. This matter shouldn't be delayed. We'd better set off as soon as possible. At this moment, the battlefield was getting closer and closer. The situation was getting more and more serious. Most of the people that Ji Huitian pointed out had already died tragically in the hands of the heavenly demon. Those who are afraid of death will definitely not be able to endure hardships. If they can endure hardships, their cultivation won't be high. If their cultivation isn't high, there's only death on this battlefield. Ji Huidan looked coldly and said, "It's about time. Move out." Before he finished speaking, Yan Fei's burly figure suddenly rushed out. He shouted like a thunderbolt, "Gai Qiong Xiao, Chang Tianyan, spread your wings and soar between heaven and earth. Who can compare to Fei Lingxiao, Brother Jie's 8th test?" Yan Fei rushed out. The burly figure rushed into the crowd of heavenly demons at the first moment. Suddenly, like a wave, a bloody path was opened. But the others were stunned at the same time. Because of one sentence. Since when did Yan Fei call himself Tribulation again? What was this situation? But no matter what, no matter how regretful, angry, sad, or puzzled they were, when they heard this voice, when they heard the words Brother Jie's 8th test, everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, Brother Jie. This was a name that they wished they could forget long ago. In fact, it had long been imprinted in their hearts and could never be erased. Perhaps, it was once a pain that life couldn't bear, but it was also the happiest period of their lives. The most glorious and glorious period of their lives. As soon as they heard these words, everyone felt their blood boil. "Jun Weiling!" Ji Huitian stood up and shouted like a thunderbolt. "I'm here." Jun Weiling rose into the air. "You and your brothers protect the princess and the other two. Everyone, let's work together and rush out. Let's kill all these heavenly demons first." The moment he finished speaking, Ji Huitian had already taken the lead to fly up. His whole body suddenly shone with golden light in midair. His burly and majestic body, with an extremely brilliant sword light, turned into a shooting star in the sky. He took the lead and rushed into the camp of heavenly demons. Charge! No one knew who it was that shouted out loud. So, 7 groups of people rushed out at the same time. Their momentum was unparalleled, and their spirit was shocking. Chu Yang, Mo Qingwu and the other 2 people were mixed in a small formation formed by Jun Weiling and the other 7 people. For a moment, they couldn't help but move forward passively. In a trance, they felt that they had already rushed into the camp of heavenly demons. The group of people, with Ji Huitian in the lead, swept into the crowd of heavenly demons like a furious dragon. With a long roar, sword light overflowed from their bodies. Thousands of sword lights whizzed out. Screams sounded in waves. Countless grotesquely shaped heavenly demons fell down at this moment. It wasn't a single sword that took their lives, but their bodies were torn apart and they couldn't be more dead. To Chu Yang's surprise, he discovered that during the battle, the bodies of these former tribulations were all emitting brilliant golden light. Furthermore, they were still flickering and not dimming at all. It was as if, as more and more heavenly demons died, the golden light on these people's bodies became more brilliant. Could it be that there was something else? The indestructible golden body wasn't as simple as imagined. Chu Yang thought silently in his heart. Under the protection of such a tyrannical team, they were facing a small group of heavenly demons who weren't very powerful. The two sides couldn't be called enemies at all. It was just a one-sided massacre. Chu Yang and the other two didn't even have a chance to attack. They just saw these people charge out a bloody path as if they were cutting melons and vegetables. They passed through the tens of thousands of heavenly demons effortlessly. Even when they passed through the back of this group of enemies, the group still didn't stop at all. Their advancing speed didn't decrease but increased instead. They rolled out like a gust of wind and pierced straight into the depths of the vast white bone wasteland. Along the way, the heavenly demons suffered heavy casualties. However, those who were pointed out as cowards, even if they were lucky enough to survive until now, all died strangely without exception. Who did it? They couldn't tell at all. Ji Huitian once said, "Even if the heavenly demons don't kill such people, we have to kill them." Chu Yang sighed in his heart. These people really can't tolerate even a little bit of sand. But on the battlefield, they could entrust their backs to Brother Jie and the others. No matter if they knew them or not, they could completely rest assured. Because these people were the real warriors. They faintly heard someone call out from behind, "Thank you for your help." "May I know?" Jun Weiling and the others completely ignored that question. They had already rushed out thousands of feet away with the group and left the battlefield. They just did it conveniently. Anyway, they had to rush out. So, killing a few more heavenly demons when they rushed out was just a bonus. As for taking credit and accepting thanks, everyone didn't think so. Death is fate, life is luck. This is the battlefield. There's no reason to talk about it. Ji Huitian said lightly as the sword energy rushed out. Hundreds of heavenly demons in front of him exploded at the same time and scattered into the air like blooming plum blossoms. Today, my computer was broken. Actually, it wasn't broken, but I didn't know why it couldn't be turned on. For the whole day, I found many people to fix it. Finally, a brother fixed it. Then he told me very tactfully, "Brother, don't randomly click on things you don't understand, and don't randomly delete things. You're just typing, so you can just use ORD. Don't worry about other things." Suddenly, I felt like thousands of divine beasts were rushing through a swamp full of mud. In an instant, I was in a mess. Chapter 2440. A total of 14 people, like a hurricane that had completely condensed together, whizzed past. Tens of thousands of extraterrestrial demons didn't even have the ability to stop them. These are the legendary extraterrestrial demons? Aren't they a little too weak? With such strength, they can actually attack and occupy purple cloud heavens. Zi Xiecheng was a little surprised, even incredulous. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. "What you see may not be true. What you and I have seen is merely a frog in a well. I reckon that this wave of extraterrestrial demons is just a low-level clown, at most some cannon fodder. Those battle formations just now were probably the extraterrestrial demons and the celestial imperial court training each other, definitely not a real battle. The experts on the extraterrestrial demons' side didn't even come out. At most, there are only 1 or 2 leaders. How can they stop more than 10 high-level saints with immortal bodies at the same time? How can we judge the real combat power of the extraterrestrial demons? Besides, although this world is big, how many experts can reach the level of a saint? A team made up entirely of high-level saints. I don't think you can find more than a few teams in this world. Chu Yang explained with a smile. Zi Xiecheng was relieved. Yes, such a team made up entirely of high-level saints with immortal bodies, even a celestial emperor or even a saint himself might not be able to form one. In front of such a strong force, if an ordinary extraterrestrial demon team didn't show signs of destruction, that would be a miracle. The situation just now can't be repeated. This time, to a large extent, we were caught off guard. The real experts on the extraterrestrial demons side didn't even have time to attack. But after we have rushed out for a distance, I'm afraid they will react. By then, it won't be so easy anymore. Chu Yang looked at the empty space in front and was a little worried. The road ahead is vast. This time, I'm afraid it will be an unprecedentedly fierce battle. Jianghu. Chu Yang turned to look at Mo Jianghu. The heavy pills that I gave you must be ready at all times. Don't be stingy. Once someone is injured, it doesn't have to be a life and death injury. As long as it affects their movements or attacks, don't hesitate to give them the medicine immediately. You must ensure that everyone is always in peak condition. Otherwise, there will be an extremely high possibility that someone will die during this trip. Once there is a casualty, it will lead to a series of deaths and injuries. You must remember this. Mo Jianghu's big black and white eyes were filled with determination. He nodded solemnly. The butterfly knot on her head spread its wings, ready to fly. If it weren't for the fact that they were on the battlefield and the situation of the battle was constantly changing, Chu Yang would have kissed this girl's tender face. A certain someone was clearly still quite a distance away from this realm. Since Jun Wei Ling and the others didn't have a target to attack, they simply rushed out. But this time, it was on their faces. Everyone's face was flushed with excitement. Almost everyone looked at Chu Yang with eyes that were filled with boundless passion and sadness. This was the master of Calamity Sword. Although this Calamity Sword master isn't my boss, but since the current Calamity Sword master is here, then the long-lost Calamity Sword must have returned to us. Calamity Sword has returned. It's as if boss has returned as well. He has appeared in our camp again. The brothers could fight side by side again. This thought made all of them so excited that their hearts almost burst. They really wanted to see the infinite magnificence and sharpness of the Calamity Sword when it was unsheathed. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? That unparalleled domineering aura. It would be even better if they could see the move sword pointing at Bai Yundong, but that was boss's self-created move. It was unlikely that this sword master would know it. Boss, where are you now? They rushed all the way without resting at all. The group of people had been running at top speed for 2 hours. They really didn't know how far they had gone. But the bones under their feet became fewer and fewer. In some places, they could already see the ground. Although it was still desolate as far as the eye could see, but it was no longer as terrifying as before. Looking around, one could actually see some dilapidated houses and city walls in some places. They stood alone on the empty ground. It was endless desolation. Seeing Zi Xiecheng looking around, Jun Weiling smiled and said gently, "You don't have to look anymore. This is not the site of the battle back then. Back then, the Purple Cloud Heavens buildings built by the Purple Cloud Heavens Emperor when he was still alive have long been destroyed. As for these in front of us, they were actually the fortresses and outposts that the heavenly demons wanted to build over the years. But every time, every place was destroyed by us." Zi Xiecheng made an "oh" sound and felt lost. But Chu Yang's eyes lit up. All the buildings were destroyed. Then how tragic was the battle back then? Just as he was thinking, Ji Huitian, who was in front, suddenly stopped and waved his hand. Everyone stopped at the same time. Everyone looked at the sky in front of them at the same time. Above the dark clouds in the sky, a black shadow suddenly flew out. It had long wings and flew back and forth in the sky. It was as if an evil black eagle suddenly flew out of the dark clouds in the sky. Upon closer inspection, the newcomer was a strange-looking human with wings growing out of both sides of his ribs. This wave of demons is the Flying Devil Clan. Ji Huitian looked serious and said, "It seems that the heavenly demons have completed this wave of defense change and the Flying Devil Clan has taken over the front line." Sure enough, after the appearance of the first extraterrestrial demon, countless shadows appeared from the dark clouds. Countless wings spread out as they descended towards this place. The formation was unusually neat. It was as if a huge black iron plate had descended from the sky with a heavy aura. Chu Yang looked over and saw that there were actually not many heavenly demons. There were at most 3,000 of them. But he could not guarantee that there were no hidden troops above the clouds in ambush. This number naturally couldn't move Chu Yang. What really shocked Chu Yang was that he couldn't see through the depths of these extraterrestrial demons. It wouldn't be surprising if it was only one or two of them. However, he couldn't see through the depths of all the extraterrestrial demons. There were no less than 3,000 of them. This didn't make sense. Could it be that the strength of these 3,000 winged demons far surpassed his? Wasn't this a little too shocking? As if seeing Chu Yang's shock, Jun Weiling explained, "Don't be so surprised. These flying devils are definitely not weak. But they may not be too strong. Although there is no white fog here, the interference of divine sense still exists. We can only know who is stronger and who is weaker when we really fight. So, there's no need to make a fuss over nothing. These birds won't be able to stop us." Jun Weiling raised his eyebrows and said with a murderous look, "These bastards are only here to die." Chu Yang laughed and the doubts in his heart disappeared. He understood that the opponent's strength was not as exaggerated as he thought. Naturally, he was not afraid. The Flying Devil clan had already descended and faced the crowd. There was one with dark golden stripes on his wings. He was exceptionally tall and sturdy, far taller than the rest. He had a sharp mouth and a burly sarcoma on his forehead. He took a step forward and laughed strangely. "I really did not expect that you gold-robed heavenly guards would rush out of the first bridge one day. Pa, are you here to die?" Ji Huitian and the others had been fighting with them for tens of thousands of years. They had almost become acquaintances. And they had never revealed their identity as Tribulation's brothers. They only buried themselves in killing the enemies. They focused on guarding the heavenly palace. So, the heavenly demons called them gold-robed heavenly guards. And Ji Huitian and the others did not refute this name, although they actually wanted others to know that they were Tribulation's brothers. Tribulation's brothers were their real names. Although these bastards did not know what tribulation meant, they had pride in these two words that came from their bones and souls. Ji Huitian stood upright and looked coldly at the leader of the Flying Devil clan. He said lightly, "We are always waiting for you to come and die. We are really tired of it. Besides, you are indeed more afraid of death now. We are not satisfied with killing you. So, we have to come out and look for you. We can only go back after we are satisfied. It's just to adjust our mood. It's really no big deal." That Flying Devil was furious and said, "Dad, arrogant Jina, do you know who you are talking to?" All along, the Heavenly Palace's counterattack had stopped at that world, heavenly demon's name for a certain city in purple cloud heavens. So, the heavenly demons called the people of the Heavenly Palace, Jina. It meant that the people who stopped at that world, of course, this dad, brother, seemed to be calling both father and brother, but to the heavenly demons, it was a scolding word. Moreover, it was the most commonly used scolding word. It was almost equivalent to the human race's fuck. In Yen Fei's words, "I don't know how this group of idiots got beaten up. They have to call me brother and father at the same time, but their brains are filled with shit. They stubbornly believe that this sentence means that they are calling me a bastard. Don't call me that intimately. You don't have that qualification, because I don't even know what your mother looks like. You are purely slandering me." Ji Huidan said sarcastically, "If I could do you, I believe I would have committed suicide out of shame." That Flying Devil's body trembled. He opened his mouth, revealing a mouth that was like a cesspit. He screamed sharply, "Kill this stupid Jina pig!" Oh, Ku! Hundreds of Flying Devils soared up at the same time. Their wings flapped the sky and flew over like lightning. The horizon was dyed with endless haze. Ji Huitian snorted. His eyes turned sharp. Following a clear sword cry, a grand sword light suddenly appeared. "Today is Sister Dream of the Old Scenery's birthday. Let us wish her a happy birthday. Since Sister Dream of the old scenery joined us, she has never left us. She has always been our good partner. We share joy and laughter and fight side by side. On your birthday, let me sincerely wish you a happy birthday, Sister. Chapter 2441. Ji Huitian had been charging until now. Although he was surrounded by sword aura, he hadn't used any sword yet. This time, it was the first time his sword was unsheathed. The sword light was like autumn water. Ji Huiyan stared at the sword and suddenly chanted, "Cultivate my battle sword to slay the extraterrestrial demons. Destroy my purple heaven's 10,000-mile waves. I have no other ambition in this life, only to turn the extraterrestrial into a river of blood." With a long chant, Ji Huitian came out with his sword. His golden robe fluttered as he faced the hundreds of flying demons head-on. However, in the face of such a situation where they were outnumbered, the others didn't make a move. Even Ji Huitian's brothers looked indifferent as they watched the two sides quickly approach each other. At this moment, Chu Yang couldn't help but widen his eyes. This battle was Ji Huitian's alone. He wanted to fight against these hundreds of people with his own strength. This is the first time I've seen the previous leader of the tribulation fight. Chu Yang said to himself. His blood was surging, and he had a trace of expectation. The hundreds of flying demons in front of him weren't mediocre at all. The combined battle power of this group of flying demons was no small matter. Ji Huitian's speed became faster and faster. In the end, he turned into a group of illusory shadows. His extreme speed made his body cut through the air and let out a sharp whistle. A wisp of white smoke dissipated in spirals just like that. Those who offend the heavenly court. Ji Huitian's thunderous voice sounded. Immediately, Chu Yang saw countless sword lights filling the entire sky. At the same time, a thick, pitch-black demonic aura surged out from the extraterrestrial demons' camp. Whistling sounds rose one after another. Those were the weapons of the extraterrestrial demons. They wreaked havoc in the demonic aura. In the face of Ji Huitian's magnificent sword aura, the demons didn't want to be outdone. They immediately responded. In terms of power, the extraterrestrial demons had the upper hand. Although Ji Huitian's sword aura was magnificent, it was still only his strength. The other side had hundreds of people. In the face of the other side's strong counterattack, Ji Huitian laughed loudly as if he didn't care at all. His sword made a buzzing sound. Immediately, everyone saw a snow mountain suddenly appear in front of them. Yes, from the sky to the ground, from the top to the bottom, from the left to the right, a complete snowy mountain condensed in front of him. The mountain peaks stood in great numbers, covered in white snow, and wrapped in white jade. Under the illumination of the sun, thousands of rays of magnificent white light were refracted, standing tall and majestic. This is Ji Huitian's unique martial art. Jun Weiling clasped his hands behind his back and explained to Chu Yang and the others, Snowy Mountain Condensation Sword. One sword Snowy Mountain Toppling Sword. So far, this is only the first half of the move, or rather, the opening move. Jun Weiling stared at the snowy mountain, as if she was full of anticipation. As expected, Jun Weiling's expectations were not let down. In the next moment, the towering snow mountains suddenly collapsed without any warning. Every single snowflake transformed into dense sword energy. It was as if every inch of the world was filled with such chilling sword energy. Streaks, 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 were wreaking havoc in the entire world. On the other side, not a single one of the 300 flying demons managed to escape. All of them were trapped within the sword chi. There was no sign of him at all. All he could see with his eyes was the dense sword chi. Only the sword energy was awe-inspiring. Swish, 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 swish. With a clang, Ji Huitian sheathed his sword. With a flip of his body, he quietly landed on the ground. His golden robe shone as he slowly walked back. He actually did not turn back to look at the group of heavenly demons who were close behind him. His footsteps were light as he walked back. The moment he turned around, he said indifferently, "Crack!" Puff, 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 puff. Following this crack, as if they had received some sort of order, countless tiny cracking sounds suddenly rang out in a concentrated manner. The 300 heavenly demons, who had been in a state of stupefaction, stood motionless like statues. Suddenly, countless cracks appeared on their bodies. From the cracks, black-purple blood spurted out. Following that, pieces of flesh and bones gradually separated from his body, turning into pieces of flesh and blood that fell to the ground. Regardless of whether it was their heads, chests, shoulders, arms, or legs, they all cracked at the same time. It was as if they were made of mud that had suddenly encountered a flood. Under the irresistible external pressure, they instantly turned into puddles of flesh and blood. There was no resistance at all. 370 heavenly demons were instantly killed by Ji Huitian's sword. As the demons were annihilated, the pungent smell of blood rose to the sky. Ji Huitian looked at this scene with his hands clasped behind his back. He said indifferently, "I changed the name of this move. Now it's called One Sword Dismemberment of Millions." Mo Qingwu's complexion turned deathly pale as she looked at the puddles of flesh and blood in front of her. She was used to killing and was used to death. But she still received a great shock when she suddenly saw such a horrifying and bloody scene. Yes, it was dismemberment, genuine dismemberment without any tricks. Moreover, no matter how many enemies came in front of him, as long as this sword was used, all of them would be dismembered and killed. There was no exception. There was no exception. Chu Yang was shocked. The strength of this former leader of the tribulations was really unfathomable. Ji Huitian sighed and said, "The only pity is that I still haven't been able to practice this move to the real extreme. Now, I can only dismember less than 1,000 people with one sword. But, as long as I have more time and continue to improve, there will be a day when this sword is used, and all of the extraterrestrial demons will be dismembered and killed with one sword. Foreign invaders should be dismembered and killed." He grinned with a dignified demeanor. If one didn't see it with their own eyes, it was really hard to imagine that such a bloody scene just now was caused by this person. Jun Weiling lowered his head and muttered, "I can't take it anymore. I really can't take it anymore. This guy is too pretentious, he's too pretentious." Seeing the sudden change, the leader of the heavenly demons on the opposite side had fear in his eyes at this moment. Although he had heard all kinds of rumors about the golden-robed heavenly guards, he absolutely didn't expect that any one of them had reached such a frightening level. These people on his side were absolutely no match for this one person. Moreover, there were so many of them, there were really too many of them, more than 10 people against more than 3,000 people, and it actually made the side with more people feel that there were too many of them. This was really an unprecedented and strange thing. If everyone had similar strength, then the leader of the heavenly demons didn't dare to think about it anymore. If he continued to think about it, he would be scared to death before the other party even made a move. "Retreat for today, we'll take revenge another day." The leader of the heavenly demons came aggressively, but after the battle, he gave such an order. But this order seemed to be very timely. At least, all the heavenly demons felt so. All the heavenly demons let out a long sigh of relief at the same time. "Great, we don't have to die." Ji Huitian laughed loudly. "You want to run when things aren't going well? You came to our heavenly imperial court, and you still want to go back alive? What a wishful thinking, what a joke. Brothers, let's attack together. Kill this bunch of bastards." Everyone responded loudly, and in an instant, swords and sabers were drawn. Something that the leader of the heavenly demons didn't dare to imagine happened. It turned out that the rest of the people were really on the same level as that ferocious person. They all had tyrannical strength, and there was no suspense at all in the battle. Chu Yang and the other two didn't participate in this battle. It wasn't that they didn't want to, but they were stopped by Jun Weiling and the others. Even though they knew that since these three dared to come to Purple Cloud Heavens, their strength must be extraordinary, Jun Weiling and the others felt that it was better for them not to take action. One was Tribulation Swordmaster, one was Sister Tribulation, and one was the Princess of Purple Cloud Heavens. Needless to say, these three people were all dead. Even if any of them were accidentally injured, everyone would feel very guilty. Chu Yang and the other two helplessly looked at this battle, and they were really a little depressed. Chu Yang couldn't understand how Jun Weiling and the others thought. If they didn't let them take action in such a risk-free battle formation, then what other battle formation would let them take action? This was because the current battle was not a battle at all. It was a one-sided massacre. With the 11 Tribulation Brothers attacking at the same time, the 3,000 heavenly demons were no match for them at all. In just a few moments, the massacre was over. As for the leader of the heavenly demons, he was the luckiest, because he was the only survivor. The reason why he could survive wasn't because of how strong he was, but because Ji Hui was captured by the World Order. This battle had no suspense at all, and Chu Yang couldn't help but yawn. These were called heavenly demons. They were really too weak. Although the people on his side were really strong, these guys were really too weak to withstand a single blow, right? The leader of the heavenly demons who was captured by the heavenly demons was the most unfortunate. Although his companions had all died, at least they died happily. But now, he couldn't even. What was your standard in the land of heavenly demons? What was your specific position? Jun Weiling was interrogating. Actually, it couldn't be considered an interrogation, but a torture to kill. Regardless of whether that heavenly demon answered or not, a bone would be broken. This heavenly demon's cultivation and divine soul energy had been completely restrained. Even if he wanted to commit suicide, he couldn't do it. He could only passively endure this torture. After a long while, Jun Weiling finally got an answer. This answer, coupled with Jun Weiling's explanation, shocked Chu Yang. Big captain? Just a big captain of a big team. A big team of 3,000 people. This heavenly demon wasn't even a general. He wasn't even a general of the lowest rank. The military ranks of heavenly demons were divided into 12 ranks. Each rank was higher than the previous. Above the ranks of general, there were heavenly demons, 10 earths, and 10 heavenly demons. Above the 10 heavenly demons was the heavenly demon king. Above the 8 heavenly demon kings, there were the 4 great heavenly demon kings. Above the 4 great heavenly demon kings was the supreme ruler of the heavenly demons, the heavenly emperor. Chapter 2442. The strength of the extraterrestrial demons has never been truly revealed. Back then, when they invaded purple cloud heavens, they only sent out a portion of their strength. Ji Huidan sighed and said, "Firstly, they are also afraid of the countless experts in our heaven imperial court. Secondly, we also have experts at the level of Emperor 1, Empress only, and Holy Monarch who haven't joined the battle. If we rashly start an all-out war, the gains won't make up for the losses." Back then, just one purple cloud heavenly emperor and one purple cloud heavens had already caused the extraterrestrial demons to lose a lot of battle power. If Emperor 1 and Empress were to join forces, the losses would definitely be calculated by tens or even hundreds of times. Even though the extraterrestrial demons have a lot of people, they can't afford such losses. Therefore, the extraterrestrial demons are also quite apprehensive. Not to mention, the number 1 person in the Heaven Imperial Court, Holy Monarch only, has never joined the battle. As the number 1 expert of the extraterrestrial demons, the Heavenly Emperor naturally wouldn't act rashly. This is the first reason. The second reason is that the white fog on the first bridge has existed since ancient times and has never changed. As long as this layer of white fog exists, one must pass through the first bridge to truly reach the Heaven Imperial Court. And this first bridge is a military strategic location where one man can hold back 10,000 men. No matter how high one's cultivation is, one can only walk over here step by step. The movement of a large army will definitely be restricted. Actually, the extraterrestrial demons have long been thinking of various methods, hoping to eliminate this layer of white fog. Xianyuan Changkong said in a low voice, "They have already researched for 1,000,000 years. Every once in a while, a new method of attack will appear and they will try it out. As long as they can eliminate this layer of white fog barrier, the extraterrestrial demon army can drive straight in and attack the Heaven Imperial Court. Regarding this, I'm really a little worried. Although in these millions of years, they have never found an effective method to deal with the white fog, but in the long run, sooner or later, they will develop it. Because in these recent years, their various attempts have already affected the white fog to a certain extent. Although the effect of each attack is still not obvious, in the recent 20,000 years, the white fog has actually become much thinner. As people who deal with the white fog day and night, we are naturally aware of this change. Ji Huitian nodded and said, "That's right. When I first came here, the white fog was so thick that I couldn't see anything. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that I couldn't even see my 5 fingers if I stretched my hand out. Even if 2 people were face to face and could feel each other's hot breaths, they still couldn't see each other's faces. But now, as long as I get closer, I can see more clearly. This is undoubtedly a strong omen of danger. Once this natural barrier disappears, it will be a great disaster for the entire Heaven Palace." Ji Huitian heaved a long sigh. "Could it be that you didn't report such an abnormal situation to the upper echelons of Tianke?" Chu Yang frowned and said, "Since such a situation has occurred, we should take the initiative to attack. Even if we can't kill all the extraterrestrial demons, we should at least try to suppress them. Don't let them attack the white mist. Since the white mist will become thinner after being attacked, it might be able to recover after a certain amount of time. If it can recover to its thickest state, it might be able to last for another 1,000,000 years. That is still very possible. Why wouldn't we report it?" Ji Huitian sneered. "But who would really care about those drunken big shots in Tianke? As long as the extraterrestrial demon army can still be blocked outside the first bridge, they will be safe in their hearts. We also want to let the white mist have a place to recuperate. But we only have so few people here. Everyone's defense is already stretched thin. How can we carry out a counterattack?" Chu Yang said angrily, "Once the white mist disappears, the extraterrestrial demon army will definitely move out in full force and invade Tian, Quebec. With just the people here now, how can we defend? When that time comes, won't the people be plunged into misery and suffering? I'm afraid that's already the general trend. But even if we are aware of it, what's the point? This is the situation now. Is there no other way?" Ji Huitian sneered. "Tianke has made it clear that they won't send an army over to defend. With just the few of us here, how long can we last? Besides, when the extraterrestrial demons enter Tianke, all of us brothers will definitely have died in battle. When that time comes, even if we die, we will die a worthy death and have a clear conscience. Even if Tianke is really invaded by the extraterrestrial demons, or even completely fallen, we won't know anything. But as long as we are alive, the extraterrestrial demons can forget about taking a step forward." Ji Huitian's sword-like eyebrows slowly rose. He glanced at Zi Sheqing and said lightly, "Although we brothers may not be as heroic as the heavenly emperor of purple clouds, this kind of loyal heart and righteousness is something that we should learn from the heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zihao. Even if we will all die in battle here one day, we must also let the dead heroes know that they are not lonely. In this world, there is still another group of heroes who will perish together with them." Ji Huiyan laughed loudly and said loudly, "Let's go. We will continue to charge forward. In front, each obstacle will be more difficult than the previous one. Everyone, keep your spirits up. Don't be careless. Our trip is of great importance. We can't be careless." "Good." Tribulation's brothers shouted at the same time. Everyone was in high spirits and high spirits. The group continued to charge forward. It seemed that they didn't care about the heavy topic just now. It was as if they didn't hear it. But Chu Yang looked at their backs for a long time. His mind was full of thoughts. It's not that they didn't care, but they had already seen through it. They had already thought it through. As they said, as long as they fought to the last breath, they would have a clear conscience. Even if they died, they would still be indomitable. What happened later would have nothing to do with them. Someone once said, "After I die, even if the world is flooded?" Now, this group of people had such a mentality when they were free. However, the former was being irresponsible, while these heroes were being benevolent and had a clear conscience. Because even if they did, they couldn't do anything about it anymore. If the attitude of the Heaven Imperial Court's higher-ups doesn't change. Ji Huitian flew rapidly and sighed. Destruction is imminent. Everyone was silent. Even Chu Yang was silent. Yes, the extraterrestrial demons were recuperating and preparing for war every day. But there weren't many people in the Heaven Imperial Court who knew about the extraterrestrial demons. Even if they knew about the extraterrestrial demons, it didn't stop them from indulging in debauchery. Because there was a saint. And the Empress. Outside the purple cloud heavens, there was that strange white fog that had existed for a long time. The extraterrestrial demons definitely couldn't come over. But who knew that the white fog was gradually dissipating? Who knew that the extraterrestrial demons had never given up trying to dissipate the white fog for 1,000,000 years? And these 1,000,000 years of peace had already made everyone in the Heaven Imperial Court forget about the extraterrestrial demons. Once this strongest fortress was lost and broken through, then one could imagine that in just a moment, billions of extraterrestrial demons would surge into the Heaven Imperial Court. By then, it would be too late to say anything along the way. They encountered more and more battles. Although his divine sense was still restricted and he didn't come into contact with the extraterrestrial demons personally, Chu Yang could still feel that the demon soldiers sent out by the other party were gradually increasing in strength. The duration of each battle was also getting longer and longer. In addition, Chu Yang also had a vague feeling that although the demon soldiers sent out by the other party were getting stronger and stronger, overall, they still didn't cause any real pressure to the Tribulation Brothers. Even though they outnumbered them by hundreds and thousands of times, they were still annihilated in the end. The extraterrestrial demons actually didn't send out any powerful experts all along. This situation seemed to be very wrong. Although the Tribulation Brothers of the past were powerful, there was still a limit. Could it be that the extraterrestrial demons really couldn't find an expert who could fight against them? This was obviously impossible. If so, how did the purple cloud heavens fall when there were so many experts, and they were even more powerful than the Tribulation Brothers? Taking the limits of Yuan Tian as an example, if they really fought one-on-one, even if the Tribulation Brothers had the indestructible golden body, they still wouldn't be his match. The indestructible golden body didn't equate to eternal immortality. If the opponent's strength was too powerful and exceeded the limits of the indestructible golden body, the indestructible golden body would eventually be broken. But the extraterrestrial demons just didn't move. This reason was more thought-provoking. Could it be that the extraterrestrial demons are luring the enemy deep into the purple cloud heavens? Chu Yang found Ji Huitian. Ji Huitian's face was full of profound meaning. Our original intention is to go deep into the core area. Even if they really set up a trap to lure the enemy deep into the purple cloud heavens, it doesn't matter. On the contrary, it's exactly what we want. Chu Yang's eyes were filled with worry. But, if our guess is right, the situation will be very different from when we keep on breaking through. At that time, the extraterrestrial demons will surround us and form a heavy encirclement. If we want to turn around and fight our way back from there, it's too dangerous. Ji Huitian said lightly, "For thousands of years, we've been fighting our way through like this. So what if it's dangerous?" He paused and looked at Chu Yang. His eyes turned solemn and he said, "For so many years, we've always been defending passively. We've never touched the core area of the purple cloud heavens at all. Regarding the real battle power of the extraterrestrial demons, at most, we only have a smattering of knowledge, or even completely don't understand. The original intention of this operation is to escort the Princess of Purple Cloud to pay respects to His Majesty the Celestial Emperor. But this trip back and forth can also be used to really feel out the actual situation of the extraterrestrial demons. If we don't personally experience the extraterrestrial demons' real strength, it'll always be hazy and blurry." Ji Huitian's voice turned indifferent. "Brother Chu, will naturally do our best for this trip. Even if we have to risk our lives, we'll still make sure that the three of you return safely. Maybe by then, not many of our brothers will be able to return. But if we really can't return, then we'll have to trouble you to report the actual situation and real strength of the extraterrestrial demons to Tian K. Today, the deputy moderator came to Lai Wu and taught me a crazy lesson. Tomorrow, the leader of the publishing house will come to Lai Wu in the afternoon. The leader of the gaming company will come to Lai Wu in the morning. There are also two great gods who will fly to Lai Wu the day after tomorrow. Lai Wu is suddenly a gathering of heroes. Because of the above reasons, today's second update will be a little late. Because this morning, the deputy moderator got me drunk, the updates in the next few days will be unstable. Let's see if you can guess who will come over. Let me give you a hint. It's a very heavyweight kind. Chapter 2443. Chu Yang's gaze froze. Reporting to Tian K and making Tian K face up to the danger of the extraterrestrial demons is really more difficult than this battle. Ji Hui Tian smiled mockingly. That bunch of big shots who are used to peace and comfort. Ji Hui Tian smiled bitterly and didn't say anything else. He fell silent. It seemed that these words had evoked the intense anger in his heart. On the road after that, Ji Huitian's attacks became even more vicious, even more fearless, and even more relentless. Xianyuan Changkong's brothers obviously already knew something from Xianyuan Changkong's mouth. Everyone fell silent. This night was destined to not be peaceful, and it was also destined to be a long night. With surging murderous aura mixed with boundless demonic aura, the extraterrestrial demon army finally arrived. With the arrival of this extremely large extraterrestrial demon army, Xianyuan Changkong and his brothers rushed out as if they had gone mad. They didn't allow anyone to help them, and they just killed blindly. They killed hundreds of thousands of extraterrestrial demons for an entire night. Everyone was like a madman. No one knew that only in a life-and-death battle, when facing the enemy, they were actually killing while tears streamed down their faces. As they shouted the name of their boss, they continued to kill the enemy in a frenzy. Perhaps it was only at that time that they could truly express the sorrow and regret in their hearts. Perhaps only the wounds all over their bodies and the piercing pain when the enemy's swords and sabers cut their flesh could lessen the pain in their hearts a little. This night, an entire night, the extraterrestrial demon army, which had a total strength of more than 200,000, was so frightened by this person that everyone trembled. He was a killing maniac from head to toe. Fighting with such a maniac was undoubtedly the most terrifying thing. Firstly, they all had the undying golden body. Secondly, the undying golden body's madness. After an entire night of killing, the extraterrestrial demon army completely collapsed. Just at dawn, they retreated with a howl. When they retreated, less than half of the army of more than 200,000 was finally able to retreat. Success or failure was uncertain. Jiang Shanghan and the others stood among the corpses of the extraterrestrial demons with tattered clothes and wounds all over their bodies. Their faces were mournful, and their eyes were red. An individual against 200,000 was obviously a huge victory. This was a classic battle that was enough to give rise to legends and legends. However, there was not the slightest hint of joy on his face. Instead, it was filled with sadness and sorrow. At this moment, the other Tribulation brothers, who came to greet him with joy, looked at each other in dismay. What's wrong with this person? Why did he still have such an expression after winning? Behind Ji Huitian, the junior cultivator frowned and pondered for a moment. Then he seemed to have thought of something and his expression changed greatly. He abruptly raised his head and looked at Qingyu. His eyes burned with passion, and he didn't even blink. Quickly pull them back to heal. Ji Huitian roared. Immediately, everyone rushed forward. Ji Huitian turned his head and saw his brother's ugly face. He couldn't help but be surprised. Zuoqiu, what's wrong with you? This person was none other than Zuoqiu Yuntu, the brains of the second generation's Tribulation brothers. Zuoqiu Yunfu's face was a little pale, and his body swayed for some reason. His eyes were still following Cheng Feifei and the others, but he soon focused on Xianyuan Changkong. He took a deep breath and said, I can almost guess why they're acting so strangely today. Ji Huitian was puzzled. Zhuqiu Yunfu breathed heavily, and his face was abnormally red. He said, "Do you still remember? Jun Weiling and the others also went crazy like this some time ago?" Ji Huidan frowned and suddenly remembered, "That's right. That time, Jun Weiling and the other 8 people suddenly rushed out of the first bridge for some unknown reason. They wantonly slaughtered within a radius of 8,000 li and almost killed all the heavenly demons within that radius. In the end, everyone was so tired that they almost died. Could it be? That's right." Zhuqiu Yunfu smiled bitterly. "If I didn't guess wrongly, the reason for their actions and Qing Yu's current situation should be the same thing." He murmured as if he was asking himself and Ji Huiyan, what could make Jun Weiling and the others lose their composure like this? Do they not care about life and death? What exactly was it that could cause Shenyuan Changkong and the others to be so dejected? What did they know? Ji Huidan pondered for a while, and his face suddenly changed. His body, which had always been steady, suddenly shook, and he said with a trembling voice, "Unless it's that incident back then." Zhuqiu Yunfu smiled bitterly and nodded. "Yes, and during this period, Yan Fei and the others actually called themselves Tribulation again. But we always knew what they were thinking. The only reason that could make them like this is..." Ji Huitian suddenly felt his mind was in a mess. The next moment he felt dizzy and almost fell to the ground. For a high-level saint like Ji Huitian to actually stumble and almost faint, it could be seen how great of a shock this matter had to him. The two looked at each other and saw the faint and inexplicable fear in the depths of each other's eyes. There was also a feeling of surprise, joy, and expectation hidden in the depths of their hearts. When they turned around, they saw that Qing Yu Fei and the others were already surrounded by others. They quickly set up some tents, and Jun Weiling and the others took out medicine to treat their injuries. Ji Huitian and Zhuqiu Yunfu hurried over at the same time. At this moment, a gentle voice said, "Do you have enough medicine? How is the effect? I have the heavy pill of the Tribulation Sword Master here. Maybe it can help them recover faster." The heavy pill of the Tribulation Sword Master. Almost everyone looked up and stared blankly in the direction of the voice. How many years had it been since they heard these words? But who could really forget it? It was a peerless elixir that could instantly heal all injuries and restore one's cultivation base whenever one was injured. But that elixir only belonged to one person. It was a peerless elixir that belonged to our boss. Now they actually heard it again. Mo Qingwu stood gracefully at the periphery of the crowd. She gently stretched out her jade-like hand, holding a bottle of purple crystal jade essence in her fair palm. It was like a pure lily, blooming with purple stamens. Everyone's eyes were burning as they stared at the purple bottle. Many people's eyes suddenly became scorching hot and sour. Even Qing Yu Fei and the others, who were seriously injured and exhausted, raised their heads with difficulty. They stared at this small bottle in a daze, and suddenly, tears welled up in their eyes. One by one, they couldn't help but start sobbing. Men of steel had tears, and the tears were condensed. This situation was rare, but for so many men of steel to be like this, it was definitely unprecedented and rare. Mo Qingwu slowly walked closer. Everyone unconsciously stepped aside to make a path for her. Everyone's eyes and minds were fixed on this small bottle at this moment. Everyone's expressions were extremely complicated, extremely painful. Cheng Yu Fei struggled to stand up, and even though the wounds on his body were bleeding, he stood straight. His face was solemn as he looked at Mo Qingwu, who was gradually approaching. Behind him, Jiang Shanghan, Xinyuan Changkong, and the others also struggled to stand up. Their expressions were extremely serious, almost as if they were on a pilgrimage, and they looked at this purple bottle. Inside was the heavy pill. The long-awaited heavy pill. The heavy pill of the Calamity Sword Master. Boss's heavy pill. Although Boss was no longer here, the heavy pill would not change. Her jade fingers moved, and the bottle opened. An elegant and pleasant fragrance spread out, and instantly filled the air. Cheng Yu Fei's Adam's apple bobbed up and down, and his tears finally flowed out uncontrollably. His lips trembled, but he couldn't say a word. Boss, after a long time of 50,000 years, I smell this long-awaited scent again. Boss. The other few people were also trembling as they watched the heavy pills being poured out of the purple crystal bottle one by one. Everyone was trembling as they stretched out their hands, as if they were welcoming the arrival of a king. They devoutly received the heavy pills that fell into their palms, and lowered their heads to look at them. In their tiger-like eyes, drops of tears fell like broken strings. What are you looking at? Hurry up and eat them. Jianghu anxiously urged. Don't you all know that heavy pills shouldn't be exposed outside for too long? After a long time, the effect will be greatly reduced. I can't bear to. Cheng Yufei looked up and sighed. I can't bear to. These 4 words seemed to express the thoughts in everyone's mind. They were indeed reluctant. This was a heavy pill with boss's aura. Now that boss was gone, how could he bear to eat this thing at this moment? Jianghu was so anxious that she stomped her feet. What's there to be reluctant about? The effect of elixirs is to heal injuries and save lives. I still have a lot of them here. You all should hurry up and eat them. Later, I will give each of you one as a souvenir, okay? There's more? One for each? Everyone's eyes lit up. Under Jianghu's insistence, Cheng Yufei finally ate the heavy pills in his hands carefully and began to close his eyes to cultivate. Everyone's face was full of tears. Such a big man actually couldn't control his tears. This seemed to be something worth laughing at, but everyone's face was heavy. Not to mention laughing out loud, they didn't even have the slightest intention to laugh. Everyone was thinking about something. They only felt their hearts were in a mess. Jianghu took a step back. She watched with the others as the injuries on the person who was previously covered in wounds healed at a speed visible to the naked eye after taking the pills. For a moment, the whole scene was silent. Chapter 2444. Seeing that success or failure depended on them taking the heavy pill, Jun Weiling suddenly took a step forward. He looked at Jianghu and said almost as if he was begging, Miss Imo, your purple crystal bottle is now empty. I have a presumptuous request. Can you give this bottle to me, please? A purple crystal bottle that could store spiritual medicine without losing its efficacy was indeed a rare treasure. However, to a high-level saint, this thing was not even a small toy. If someone were to say that a high-level saint had asked for it, 100 people would snort in disdain. However, this thing had happened at this moment. Jun Weiling's tone was so sincere and so careful. If one did not see it with their own eyes and hear it with their own ears, it was hard to imagine that a high-level saint, an iron-blooded man, would be so humble because of such a small thing. And his tone, that kind of strong pleading, clearly expressed his urgency. His endless desire to get this little bottle. An empty bottle. Hearing this, Jianghu suddenly felt her nose tingle, and she almost cried. She nodded and slowly handed the purple crystal bottle over. Jun Weiling took it with both hands carefully. A trace of excitement flashed across his face. His brothers immediately surrounded him and begged, "Let me smell it, let me smell it." For a moment, Jun Weiling was squeezed in between the crowd and did not know what to do. Someone at the side blurted out, "How did this little guy get it first? Why didn't I get it first?" Seeing this situation, Jianghu finally could not help but tear up. She turned around and hurriedly went to find Chu Yang. What a bunch of cute and respectable men. Everyone else looked at the purple crystal bottle that was being fought over with a complicated gaze. Jun Weiling. Shimin Wanli. Ji Huidong could not hold it in anymore and shouted, "Both of you, come over here." He looked fiercely at Jun Weiling and Shimin Wanli, the think tank of this generation, and said angrily, "Tell me, what is going on? Why, you still don't want to explain to your brothers?" Wuxia Yunfu also came over. He looked at Shimin Wanli with a complicated gaze and said, "Wanli, what is going on? Does it?" Shimin Wanli took a deep breath and looked up into Wuxia Yunfu's eyes. He only answered with one word, "Yes." It was that one word. When Wuxia Yunfu heard it, his body swayed violently, and he closed his eyes. After a long time, he opened them and said, "Did you learn some other information?" Shimin Wanli was speechless and fell into silence. It was not that he did not want to say it, but that he really did not know how to describe it. How could he say it and expose this matter from the bottom of his heart? Speak. What the fuck are you thinking about? Ji Huitian roared. This roar was like a thunderclap on a sunny day. Right now, the timing is not right, Shimin Wanli said with difficulty. We're already deep in the purple cloud skies. There are at least millions of heavenly demons around us, perhaps even tens of millions of them. If we affect everyone's state of mind and make the wrong decision, then we're all doomed. He raised his head and said softly, when we go back, I will tell you everything in detail. I will tell you everything I know. But now is not the right time. Zuoqiu Yunfu's body shook again and he said with difficulty, is it about the Calamity Sword Master? On one side, Ji Huitian suddenly flew into a rage. He grabbed Shimin Wanli's lapel and roared, you've already said so much. If you don't fucking say it out loud, I'll die in front of you. This loud roar caused everyone's gazes to shoot over. Shimin Wanli was lifted into the air by Ji Huitian. He looked at Ji Huitian sadly and said softly, do you really want to hear it? Ji Huitian was furious. Nonsense. Don't you regret it? Shimin Wanli laughed bitterly. Why should I regret it? Hurry up and say it. Ji Huitian placed Shimin Wanli on the ground and said loudly, say it. Wait. Zuoqiu Yunfu waved his hand and said, Shimin, is this matter related to all of us here? Shimin Wanli closed his eyes in pain and nodded. Since that is the case, let's get everyone here to listen. Zuoqiu Yunfu said in a low voice, Shimin, you and Chang Kong have already known about it and have calmed down a lot. Later, we do something out of place, or if we make some impulsive decisions, the two of you must help us redeem them. If you don't listen, just beat us. Just leave us alive. Chu Yang, who was listening from afar, sighed in his heart. They were indeed the brains of the Calamity Sword Master. Every one of them was a wise and intelligent person. Zuoqiu Yunfu must have vaguely guessed something, or even understood it. He was just short of saying it out loud. Otherwise, he would not have made such preparations in advance. Shimin Wanli took a few deep breaths and said, okay, I got it. Ji Huitian waved his hand and the group of brothers surrounded them. They surrounded Shimin Wanli and Jun Weiling in the center. Jun Weiling let out a long sigh and lowered his head. You say it. Jun Weiling said with difficulty. You say it. Shimin Wanli was also very reluctant. They were all unwilling to speak of their tragic past. Wanli, you say it. Zuoqiu Yunfu said decisively. Shimin Wanli sighed. It's like this. Shimin Wanli gathered his emotions and wanted to speak calmly. However, when the words were about to come out of his mouth, he suddenly felt an indescribable sadness in his heart. It was mixed with a kind of guilt and anger that almost made him want to die. Subconsciously, he shouted out loud. Actually, we were wrong back then. We were wrong. We were wrong from start to finish. Our boss and your boss, they have never betrayed us. He had never tried to frame us. They never made use of us. It wasn't a coincidence that we didn't die when we were supposed to. Instead, we didn't die at all. Boss bore all the dangers for us. We were wrong. The truth is our boss died to help us. We bastard brothers who were blinded by hatred scolded him for tens of thousands of years. Shimin Wanli suddenly lost control of his emotions and said hoarsely, it was us bastards who let our boss down. It was never our boss who let us down. Including all of you. Including every single one of you here. Shimin Wanli's sharp gaze swept across everyone's faces as he scolded. From the beginning to the end, all of us are a bunch of idiots. A bunch of idiots who use their own hearts to look down on others. Repaying kindness with enmity, ungrateful. Heartless and unjust. Devoid of conscience. They're just a bunch of trash. Brother Jie. Hee, such a lofty title, even I blush when I mention it. Do we deserve it? We don't deserve it. Shimin Wanli's sudden outburst of rage caused everyone to freeze in shock. They hadn't even gotten to the main point yet, so why had he gone crazy? Why was he scolding himself and everyone else for no reason? However, no one made a sound. They just waited quietly for him to continue. Obviously, everyone knew that what he was about to say was going to be earth-shattering news. In fact, everyone could already guess what Shimin Wanli was going to say. But everyone needed proof. Everyone was waiting for the truth to come out from Shimin Wanli's mouth. Shimin Wanli took a few deep breaths before he gradually calmed down. Then, he began to tell the story, which would break his heart every time he thought about it. He recounted the unforgettable past, which had been engraved in his heart and heart. As he spoke, everyone held their breaths without exception. Pairs of eyes stared at Shimin Wanli, as if they wanted to cut him into pieces. That's how it is. Shimin Wanli laughed bitterly. Boss died for a bunch of trash like us. His soul was scattered, and he was scolded by us ungrateful fellows for tens of thousands of years, until now. Still, no one spoke. Zuoqiu Yunfu's body was trembling slightly. Ji Huitian's hand was trembling slowly. He gritted his teeth, as if he had been struck by lightning. He sat there in a daze. Everyone's eyes were showing signs of dilation. They were looking at the void in front of them without any focus. After a long time, someone suddenly shouted and stood up with tears streaming down his face. "This is impossible! This is impossible! You're lying! You're not telling the truth!" He pointed his finger at Shimin Wanli and roared angrily. His body was trembling violently, and his face was flushed red. It was as if all the blood in his body had rushed to his head. That kind of red. His pupils seemed to be in a daze at this moment. He was at a loss and empty. Shimin Wanli looked at him coldly and said sharply, "From your reaction, I can tell that you already believe me, but you still choose to yell at me. Do you not want to admit that you are heartless, ungrateful, and heartless? You are worse than a dog or a pig. Or are you trying to escape?" Shimin Wanli's voice was even more sarcastic. Sarcasm. The big man staggered back 2 steps and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He muttered, "Boss, is it really like this? Did we really misunderstand him?" Suddenly, he fell to the ground with a plop and fainted just like that. No one moved. No one went forward to help the burly man. But everyone's breathing became heavier and heavier. It gradually became louder and louder, almost like bellows. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.